Right, so we seem to be live at the moment. Good evening or good afternoon, wherever you are. So, with me, I have David Berner here in UK. Hello, David. You okay?
I'm good, thank you, Luis. Hi, thanks for having us on.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and joining me from the US. Where exactly, Gilbert? Where exactly are you?
I'm located in South Florida. It's a bit sunny right now, so kind
Oh,
of warm too.
so it's already
South
4 o'clock
Florida.
there, isn't it?
Right now it's actually 5:25. Yeah.
Right, even
Yeah.
better. Okay, you had your chow for the afternoon, and it's a pre-dinner kind of thing, then.
Yeah, pre-dinner. Exactly, pre-dinner chat. Yeah.
Okay, so
Afternoon tea.
Sure.
very good. So that's Gilbert Deltrez. Am I saying it correctly?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. He will be speaking about his book, uh, Lair, very soon, which is something I'm very impressed with. So
Cool.
here I usually have artists which are writers, most of the times,
Mhm.
although a rare exception, I had a writer only. Today, I have two writers with me, so the guys are not exactly artists, or at least the projects that I'm going to be.
We're
You're
not.
not on.
Technically, you're right. We're artists in a way, but not the physical
Oh
kind, right?
yeah, what I mean, of
No, I'm
course,
teasing you. I'm teasing you, man. I'm teasing you.
Today you've got the important half of the art team.
yes.
There you go. There you go.
But I mean that you don't actually do your lines. You do your lines on writing. You just don't do your lines over the whole page. So,
I haven't mastered the stick figure yet. I'm working on it.
exactly. So in any case, obviously, you
Mhm.
guys are not the actual iconoclasts on the two projects I will be
We're
mentioning.
not the people that anyone wants to talk to. I
We're just
understand.
the writers. Yeah, yeah, we're just the writers.
You're
The
just
lo-
a writer.
we're the lowly scribes.
Yeah, man, that's
Here,
good.
here we employ the image principle, right? When the guys were getting the group together, they said we're not gonna go ahead and do this unless we have writers which are artists. They need to be the whole founding members. They need to be the pencilers or the inkers, whatever. Besides being the writers. So, but okay, but I'm opening an exception here this evening.
Awesome, awesome.
So first we go with Gilbert. So I've noticed your book Lair,
Hmm.
uh, just really a couple, well, not a couple, but a few weeks ago. First we
Hmm.
go. I was very impressed with the cover,
Cool.
and then obviously I saw your pages went on the Indiegogo, which has launched a few days ago. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And I'm gonna start screen sharing actually, but I'm first of all I'm
Okay.
just gonna position here on the right page. I was going to go with David first, but David has a big portfolio. Yeah, I mean he's got a lot of work,
Okay.
You flatter me.
A lot to unpack.
a lot to unpack. He's got a CV here which takes you. I was having a good look at it and takes you all the way back from at least 2004.
Oh my
So
goodness.
we'll get to David, and because I'm sure he's got a lot to tell there, and I've seen him on other streams. I enjoy him very much. So first time, let me take a crack here at Lair,
Hmm.
because again, this is stylistically speaking, is a stupendous work. But
Cool.
obviously, Gilbert probably can give us a kind of a nutshell
Hmm.
a little bit quicker because his project right now is on
Hmm.
Indiegogo, and we seen he needs to get this thing funded. So let's just
Hmm.
screen share here, which I'm usually this is usually when I crash.
Don't risk it. I mean, I could just talk about it, but if you want to go for it, yeah, I mean,
Well, the problem is that
just tread carefully.
I always have
You're among friends. We're all technophobes here.
I always have yes, but to compound on that, I always have dubious things on my screen. You see, and I don't want you guys to see them.
Oh, there you go. I get it now.
So I have to be very careful with what actually I'm pointing at.
Yes,
Okay, so
sir.
are
Mm.
you guys watching this now? Are you watching Lair, the cover?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that comes up. Yep. Yes.
And it's coming up.
It goes when somebody else speaks, so you need to lock it.
Oh, I need exactly. So let me exactly. That is something I need.
Yeah, like the screen share. I don't even know how to do that yet. I'm not at the screen sharing level. Slowly, I'll work my way up.
Well, David sounds that he's a specialist here.
Yeah.
What about now, David?
I've heard other people say it. That's all.
Oh, okay.
You are right. I know about that. The problem is to find the button.
Oh, I see. I see. Okay. Well, that I can't help you
I
with.
think now it seems locked because David was talking and the screen didn't shift to his avatar. So I think we're good.
Well, what's happening with you now? You're talking now, Gilbert. So is it still there on the screen?
Yeah, it's
I
good.
still see Larry. Yeah, cool. You found it.
Wonderful. Okay, as you can see, I've zoomed in on the page. When I present work here, I like to try to fill in as much as I can. The problem, what happens, quite funny enough, is that when I zoom in on these Indiegogo pages, they also break down. So hopefully,
Yeah.
I like to show these things. Okay, so but before you get into it, let me just I have a pertinent question here for you. You have a very modest goal here of just $1,000.
Yeah.
And obviously, because you are not the artist,
Mhm.
unless you have a very good friend that is doing this amazing art for you,
Yeah.
for maybe as a favor.
Oh, I
I'm
wish. No,
wondering.
not at all. No, I'm bleeding. No, trust me. That what the thing with Lair, I originally debuted it a year ago on Kickstarter. So that was to finance the artwork. So we finished completing the book, I want to say June of this year. And I just sent out the print order 2 weeks ago. So I'm waiting for the physical copies. So I figured to piggyback on the momentum. And then when I had another project on Kickstarter, and then I found the whole Comics Gate movement. I kind of just stumbled upon it in doing research because Minor the Flesh Kickstarter wasn't doing so well, and the whole CG movement kind of just caught me off guard. And I spoke with someone on CG. I said, "Hey, I want to be part of Comicsgate, but I'm with Kickstarter," and they flat out told me, "No, you can't do it. You don't Kickstarter. We don't support Kickstarter." So I literally cold canceled that Kickstarter to do an Indiegogo. But instead of doing that project that I had canceled on Indiegogo, I shifted to bring Lair since it was already done. And I always had people asking me about the book, how they could get copies of it. So I said, you know what? Let me put that now on Lair. Let me be that focal point. And since the artwork's already done, I can have a modest goal, like you said, that 1,000. So I figured it could show that I have this one successful campaign on my repertoire that hopefully I could, use that to segue into like the next book or the next book I do on Indiegogo with the whole Comicsgate movement thing.
I see. Okay. So this is a relaunch then. All right, I wasn't aware
It's
of that.
definitely because a lot of people on Indiegogo probably haven't heard of Lair, and it's my first fully completed work. Like the other project I had was Under the Flesh. It started out as a web comic, so the artist on that one, he was doing some Marvel work, and his schedule got bombarded, and we couldn't really finish Under the Flesh, so we put it on the back burner. So then I'm like, okay, I got to have some type of work. And I don't want to shift art teams. I said I still want to stick around because in case he'll come back, we can finish that one. And then Lair was always in my head, and
Awesome.
I didn't have someone do it for free, which I wish. I'm still hoping I have that art fairy that comes around and graces me with killer lines whenever I need them. But no, we had a crowdfund, yeah.
You just wake up and they're under your pillow, man. About
that would be amazing. Holy cow!
Better than a coin. Right, it's all explained then now. Very good. So this is really just to cover a print run for a previously released work.
Yes.
And as many re-releases are more than welcome. You have here $25 for the book itself, and then you have a $15 digital. Digital copy. All right. Okay. And I'm sure. So when you said the other campaign at Kickstarter it was successful, so this is something that how many copies have you managed to shift the other time around?
So the first crowdfunding I did with Kickstarter, I only had about a decent size, 150 backers. So I did a print run to cover just literally the amount of backers, because again, just budgetary wise, the money I financed on that was just to finance the art team, the artist, the colorist, and the letterer, and literally the printing. I'm offsetting that denomination out of my own funds, just because that's just the first how I did the first time around. Wasn't well calculated, but I don't want to have anyone waiting for a book. That book's it's coming, so it's already being printed, it's being shipped. But yeah, so that was how that came about.
All right. Okay. So all right. So they're still waiting for their copies at this moment.
Yes, they've been printed through Kraken Print,
Right.
and I got the tracking order, so it should be about another week from now. Then when I get it, I will ship it back out to them, and they'll have their copies. And then this separate Indiegogo, that'll be a separate shipment. That's going to be nothing, like I just printed for that small shipment, just enough to cover my backers. I'm still not at that level where I could print out 1,000 books.
It's always tricky.
Soon, soon I'll hopefully get there. Yeah.
It's very tricky when our campaign goals are just about what we need, because it's good to go sky high. If something goes into double digits is great, but usually, especially if you have to pay for an art team, when all is said and done, it's on the printing side. Unless you get a very good deal from a printing shop, it gets tight. And then suddenly you probably have a few more backers than what you were expecting, and suddenly your budget doesn't actually cover the printing. So I know how it is.
That's Louis. You hit it right on the head with the nail, because I was hoping you could always overfund. So I figured, hey, if we get our 10,000, maybe we overfund to 11K, 12K maybe, and that will cover printing and all that. No, we got like literally 10,500, and that was it. So I'm like, okay.
And then you're stuck, because then your team is paid for. But now how do I print my books?
Yeah, and shipping could be tricky too when you're shipping overseas, and then packaging. So yeah, but it's a learning process too.
Yeah, exactly. But then again, you can find yourself suddenly with a hole in your pocket of $1,000 or more. Just to be able to print a good quality run and be able to ship it.
In case anyone's wondering, I have backed layer. I think it looks fantastic.
Oh, thank you so much, David. Awesome. And I appreciate that. Right on, man.
It is costing me both arms and both legs because of the international shipping. I think it's like $25 for the book, and I had to pay another $35 for the shipping. But
David,
I to the UK. But I mean, I saw it. I don't even know how it came up in my feed on Twitter, but I saw that title page with the logo and the split image. Wow. I don't think I've ever bought a mainstream book based on the art. So I have to say I'm much more a writer person, as you can imagine. I guess you are.
For sure. Yes, indeed.
But at the same time, as soon as I saw that, and you can tell your artist this, I think this is the first book I've ever bought based purely on the artwork.
That's incredible. I'm definitely
going to live up to it.
Of course. That's going to be crossing my fingers as I'm maturing into my craft. Hopefully that, it's different in that I try to incorporate a spiritual message. And I know that's hard to do with horror, because a lot of times horror just ends in a way where it's either tragic, there's not much hope. So I start off kind of dark, but then I try to work my way into an uplifting message. So hopefully it pays off in that respect. So I hope it lives up to the artwork, because the artwork is out of this league. And the fact that you backed it, I appreciate it. And of course, to ship to England is very tough. With my other campaign, I had to fork out at maybe $300 because the shipping, I think I had like at $20. And then with weight and all that, it came out to like maybe some orders were 28, some were 29. So I just rounded it out to 30. But David, thank you so much. I will relay that message to Sebastian Navas. He's the artist for Lair. He's a great dude. I actually discovered him on DeviantArt, and I'll let him know that we got one backer that was like the first book that he bought just on the artwork. So that means a lot. So
anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt, Luis.
Not at all. No.
I was just about to give a shout out to the art crew, actually. So Sebastian Navas, well, DeviantArt, the good old lifesaver. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's great because you go on someone's portfolio. Then DeviantArt, the way it's set up is, for the ones that don't know, it actually shows you other little thumbnails, which it's related work to the work you're looking at on a particular
Mhm.
page of DeviantArt. So let's say if you have a big name like you particularly looking for an artist with a specific style or a specific trend, like an Alex Ross. And Alex Ross will probably have his page there, or like a George Perez. But now obviously you're not going to be able to afford Alex Ross, and you're not going to be able to afford George Perez. But
not, not
below it,
not yet. Yeah.
exactly, but below it, DeviantArt suggests other artists which probably are within your price bracket, which have similar styles. And that's why DeviantArt is always a great place to find your art team for anyone, or any writer listening and is desperate on how do I go about it, where do I start. 15 years ago, there was other places. I can't even remember which was one I was using at the time, but it
Mhm.
was like an artist market. It was a completely different setup. So thankfully, then places like DeviantArt and ArtStation starts popping up. And but I gotta say,
Mhm.
the art is great, but your
Mhm.
colors are what kills it, man. It's perfect. I mean, then
Mhm.
we got here David Komodo, right?
Yes.
They're lovely colors, man. They're really well balanced. I like when a guy does this, fur down here. There's a whole mood here given with a certain set of colors, so within a certain spectrum.
Mhm.
We got here these greenish, yellowish tones, but
Mhm.
it doesn't overfill the page. It does not
Yeah.
dominate the page, and it does not kill the inks. That's the best thing about it. So this guy that is doing the colors, you hooray to him. He's
Yeah.
really
He's
nice doing the
amazing.
colors.
I call him the savant just because we were trying to figure out like each page we have a dimension. When we're in the layer dimension, I wanted to have that a feel to it. Then we have some flashback pages. I wanted that to have a certain color hue going on. So he's skilled, man. He enjoyed the freedom I gave him. I gave him a lot of free reign. I trusted him, and the evidence is right there in the pages. We got some cool looking pages there,
Yeah, very good. I
polished as
want to
well.
play.
Yeah,
I'm tempted in playing these videos here on the top, but to be honest, from my
it
previous
might
experience,
crash.
they crash. I was at John
Yeah.
Mallon on the stream with him, and he
Oh
put
yeah.
in my video on. It completely crashed. It was embarrassing for both of us.
Oh man. Yeah.
But what was worse was the noise. The
Oh my
noise.
gosh, I
The
could
sound
have.
starts getting. It was sounding like a horror movie, because it's
Oh my
high
god.
pitched and then he breaks
Yeah.
down. I won't press because I don't want to destroy the presentation. So as
Right.
I scroll down here on the
Yeah.
characters,
Hmm.
I'll just ask you to
Hmm.
to do the pitch. What is the story actually about? What is Laird?
Sounds good. So Lair pretty much is something like a fusion between Twilight Zone, Tales of the Crypt, but it has a modern day twist. The story follows an off-duty cop, that's Angelo, and he's in a rocky relationship, and he ends up facing more than just inner demons when he's just suddenly warped into the dimension that's called Lair. So he's a faithless person. He's in that rocky relationship. She's more of a faith-based woman, and their relationship is at ends. And then he's tossed in a hellish dimension for good measure, and he's trying to find his way out. And I'll leave it at that. But yeah, it's definitely something. I feel like it's a type of work that, because what I'm trying to do with like the spirituality, I'm not trying to be preachy, but
Right?
I hint at certain things. I'll even throw in a Bible verse here and there, but I try to do it as organic as possible because I've seen faith-based movies and sometimes the endings are so contrived, it doesn't feel real. And I'm like, come on, man, I get you what you want to do, but it doesn't work that way. I mean, you can't storybook it the whole time. You got to try to make something organic or at least true to the characters. So in that sense, I feel how in this climate with religion and don't force your beliefs on me and this kind of thing, I feel like this type of book wouldn't get greenlit by like maybe a mainstream publisher, even a mainstream independent publisher like a Dark Horse or something, just because I do have subtle spirituality, subtle bits of spirituality embedded in the work. So
Right.
I mean, I could be wrong, but that's
Okay.
just
So
my overall thought. Yeah.
it's a faith-based kind of plot. so it's a bit of religious overtones. But,
and a lot of gore in there too, because you got to stay true to the horror genre, right?
Right, that's what I was going to get at.
You definitely got
When it gets to the action, you could probably say this is within the horror kind of theme, basically, isn't it?
For sure.
And I was just about to ask you, what was the rating? So now that you said my favorite word, gore, well, that's it.
Yeah, it would have to be like on that. Like if it ever become a movie, it would be rated R, just because for that it would be like mature, just not in the subject matter, but more of some of the gore bits. You know, could be maybe strong for some, but it's probably nothing that you've never seen before. We're all comic geeks here, I'm sure, and we all read certain stories and seen stuff. So I'm sure there's nothing that's out of our element.
Absolutely. So we got a cross between Spawnish kind of Spawn kind of thing with some of the Warner Brothers movies like Insidious or something like that.
Yeah, that's a nice little elevator pitch. I didn't think of that.
I'm looking there when you said
it's kind of cool.
Another dimension and all that, and I can see by the colors that he's using here that he seems underground and all that. So it seems to be a lot of claustrophobic environment. So I'm thinking maybe this is I dig this environment here as he cracks a little crack there, and you can see something that's like clouds and the horizon. So this is interesting. So well, it looks like a very interesting story, David. So I think you did a good buy there. I haven't joined the campaign yet, I'm afraid. I will try because you got obviously it's running now.
No, I understand. Trust me, budget wise, I get it, man. Trust me, I hold no. I appreciate you inviting me here to talk about the book, and that's amazing. So that is well appreciated.
Just like David, the problem for us is the shipping, I'm afraid.
No, I don't. I get it. I know it's tough. That's why
I'll let you read my copy, Luis, after I finish.
Okay.
He's a stand-up guy, David. You're a stand-up guy.
He is indeed. And now, Gilbert, I will pass to David with the army has left.
Yes, I want to see what David's up to. Yes,
and David has as far as I can see, he's got a long story in a long career in the comics. I like to call it a career, but he objected to that a little bit. So
well, I objected because really it was just I did a graphic novel about 15 years ago, which is the one you're just showing there, Shades. And that took about 7 years to put together. It was a long project. I just looked at the front of the book to remind myself I was doing this from 2003 to 2010. It took up a lot of my life. So by the time I got to the end of it, I pretty much ducked out of comics altogether and decided I did some other smaller things during those 7 years, but I pretty much ducked out completely and decided I was finished with comics and that my next project would be purely a prose novel. I've now spent about 7 years on that, and I've still not finished that one either. So I'm not.
It's tough. No, writing is not for the faint of heart. I know. It's not for the faint of heart. This is a testament. You've been 7 years here, 7 years now into prose. It's not easy. You put your life, sweat, and blood into your work.
Absolutely. But then we got to obviously once as I became more aware of Comicsgate and everything that was happening there, my interest in comics began to peak again slightly, and I was thinking, maybe I could have another go at this. I wasn't really planning to, and then purely by chance, one of the artists I worked with on the graphic novel just put a post on Facebook, and we'll come back to this later, but basically put a post on Facebook saying, here are 5 characters I've designed. Does anybody want to write a fantasy story with me? And I'll do the artwork. And I thought, yeah, if I was thinking of going back into this, it's like synchronicity. It's like too much of a coincidence that I'm just starting to get interest in comics again at the same time as the artist I've already worked with is saying, I've got a project. Does anybody want to do? So I got back into it again, and I'll come on to that later. But I'm derailing the conversation.
Yes,
but that's sorry. Just to answer the question or the point, that's why I don't like to say it was a career. It was like I dipped into it and then dipped out again. I don't want anyone to think I've been doing comics for the past 18 years. I haven't at all.
Well, but 7 years is a good chunk. That's quality right there, man. You weren't messing around. You were really putting your heart and soul into this project. Real quick, Shades. I like what I'm seeing with the artwork on the share screen. What's the story here?
The story, basically, it's a group of British heroes. I like to call it as a superhero story that's not a superhero story. It's a group of British heroes. In its pure plot points, a group of British heroes who are battling a demonic threat for the soul of the UK. And yeah, and the way I've structured it, I don't like to call them superheroes, but they are really, is because the where I approached it from was I pulled together a number of like British either historical or quasi-mythical characters, and said if these characters were still alive in the 20th century, because I was only just out of the 20th century when I wrote this, how would they be viewed today? Would they be superheroes? How would they what sort of things would they actually be doing if they were still alive? And I approached it that way, and all of the heroes and all of the villains, they all embody either one of the traits that I like about the British national character or one of the traits that I don't, or the opposite thereof. And so there's a sort of allegorical theme to it underneath the surface. But my guiding principle from the beginning was, I know that. I don't really care if the reader doesn't spot any of it. I just want them to read a good, fun action adventure story. If anybody spots some of these other things that I'm lacing through it, then that's a bonus.
So
right on.
You've done okay. So I was going through this, and I was seeing the pages, and I was seeing this has been organized by chapters. So, and obviously it took you a few years to get to the end of it, and I think that it's followed up by a prologue as well. So, how did you actually release this? Did you release this as a web comic, page by page, chapter by chapter? And then eventually you got to have a full collection that allowed you to do a print copy of it, which obviously later on you will tell us where to purchase one.
Sorry.
So what was the process? And was it a step-by-step release, or did you work on it for 7 years and then release the whole thing at once?
No, it was. I originally planned to just do the whole thing at once and then release it as a graphic novel. That was my plan at the beginning, not knowing how long it was going to take me. And the first draft of the script, I think, took me about 18 months to 2 years, and that was my plan when I started looking for artists. Once we started work on it, as I'd sort of been trawling through online forums, we still had forums in those days and things, I became more aware of webcomics and webcomic hosting sites. And so I did then start serializing it as a webcomic, and I slowly built up a following for it that way. And I think originally, just to try and build up a bit of momentum, I had a sizable buffer by then. I think I had the first 3 or 4 chapters already done. So I would post 3 pages a week. And then after I'd got a little bit of a following, I dropped it to 2 pages a week. And then towards the end, when we were running short of buffer, I dropped it again to 1 page a week. But yeah, so we drip fed it online so that people would read it, know it was there. We didn't become as big as any of the sort of huge web comics out there, but I think by the end I had close to 1,000 followers, and I was quite pleased with that.
That's incredible, yeah.
And we the website it was on, that they held like a reader voted awards thing every year, and it won quite a few awards there at the end. So I was very pleased with the way it came to an end. And then sorry, go on. No, you have
that page, which is a page at the House of Lords, I think, and they're giving away the awards, isn't it? That's nice. It's like a full bleed kind of a poster, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, this you basically got the whole cast. Well, not the bad guys, but you basically got the whole cast of heroes who are triumphant there. If you want to go to the top, I can take you through them a few. These 3 guys along the top, the guy in green on the left, and the girl on the right in red, and the guy all tangled up in the webs. These are basically 3 teenagers, and they go by the name of Harrier on the left, Spider in the middle, because he drives, if you like, this big sort of spider-legged chair, and the girl is known as Gale Force. And they are basically, at the beginning of the book, they are 3 ordinary kids They know about these heroes because they have some family connection to one of them. I won't go into full details. And they have been trying to track them down because they want to follow in their footsteps. And that sort of starts the story. Coming down to the next tier, the two who are sort of snuggling close together is the guy. The guy is a World War II fighter pilot called Doug Chamberlain.
Right.
And the lady is the first century warrior queen Boudica.
Yes, I've seen quite a lot of her. She's very interesting.
I think everyone can see quite a lot. But yeah, and they are two of the core heroes of the group. They are the ones who, for reasons that are explained in the book, they have managed to survive their own epoch and have continued to the current day without aging for different reasons.
Right.
The guy, the big guy with the what, I don't know if you know these things in the US, but it's called a yard of ale that he's holding in his left hand, the right hand as we look at it. He's called Arturos, and he's effectively the spirit of King Arthur.
Nice.
He was a really fun character to do. When I was writing the script, he doesn't come into the book till about halfway through. And when I was writing the script, I really had trouble with him. He wasn't working at all. The only sort of personality trait I had for him was that because he was a king when he was alive and human and on this earth in human form, he just wanted to give everybody orders all the time. And he was rankling everybody, and it wasn't working. And I thought he's just the most obnoxious character. I need at this point in the book, I've got all the heroes to this midpoint, this low point in their story arcs, and the story needs to be lifted in some way.
Mm-hmm. And the spirit of Henry VIII.
yeah. Well, I then started thinking about it more, and I thought, well, actually, he doesn't have to be a king. I mean, he is the spirit of a king. He's not literally the king. He's actually coming back from the spirit world. So what's his role in the spirit world? And his role there is he is actually a demon hunter. So then I started going down this route of making him more like a sort of Tolkien-esque like a ranger or something, a hunter. And then this personality, I don't know how it came together, but I got this idea that he would be big and bluff and blustery and just overjoyed that he was now back in the human world. He could taste food again, which he had because he's been in the spirit world. He can now have real food. He can talk to real people. He can have conversations. So he just became full of this sort of fun personality. And I got this idea in my head. He would be like Brian Blessed, like in the Flash Gordon, the Hawkmen. Exactly. And that was the personality I sort of, in my head, that became fixed as I was writing these lines. And when I started working with the artist, almost by coincidence, I'm not sure if I mentioned Brian Blessed. I don't think I did, but he came up with this look for him. And I thought, oh my God, this is just too good to be true. This is Brian Blessed in my book.
And just to mention again, this thing is holding, you said it, but for anyone listening that doesn't know exactly what it is, what he's holding there with his left hand, what is it exactly?
It's called a yard of ale. It's actually like a long, tall glass with this bulb at the end, you can see. And
that's cool.
Yeah, and I assume, I don't know, I assume it's called that because it's literally a yard long, literally 3 feet long.
I can give a point of reference for anyone. The movie First Class, X-Men First Class, the opening scene where we see Charles Xavier for the first time when Professor X is introduced and he's in Oxford University, still walking and still with
his
he's drinking from it.
That's exactly it. And you're supposed to drink it in one go. And
and that's exactly what he's doing. And that's it. And the stick is on the corner saying, "Oh, you're showing off again, huh?"
Yeah, and the hard part is that the long length of it, the beer sort of, or the ale sort of flows to your gullet quite smoothly, and you keep your gullet open, and it keeps going down. And then, of course, when you get to the bulb at the end, it suddenly rushes at you. It all flows out of that bulb at one go.
So
it's a skill. It's a skill. The little group of 3 characters on the left, bottom left. The guy in the red cape is called the Shaman because he is a prehistoric mystic, and his background essentially is he's like a proto-druid. He's not actually a druid. He's like, if there was a religion that existed before the druids and on which the druids based their religion, he kind of comes from that side of things. And the two people with him are basically two of his lieutenants. He runs like a cult, if you like, out in Salisbury. But it's a very kind cult. They go around collecting sort of lost children, waifs and strays from the streets, give them a good home, and if they want to, a bit like the X-Men, I suppose, if they then want to join up and become part of his team, they can. The guy in Dead Center is the main character of the book, or the point of view character of the book. He's an ordinary guy called Stan Miller, who I named after Stan Lee and Frank Miller.
Nice.
and I got the idea for him from, I don't know if you have any of you read the book just called Marvels.
Mm-mm.
It's an Alex Ross book, yeah, and he has this character in it who looks at the whole of the Marvel universe and all the characters as a press photographer, and he runs around. Basically, the whole book is him photographing people.
Yeah, that's the first book.
Yeah, and I thought it would be great. I loved the idea of having an ordinary, non-powered, basic, ordinary human being as the central character, the point of view character, who could look at all these outlandish types through our eyes, if you like. But what I didn't like about the way the Marvels handled that character was they didn't really give him anything to do. He was divorced from the proceedings all the time because of his job as a photographer. He was just always on looking. He was never part of the action. I think there's one scene where he finds a mutant in a barn or something, but basically he wasn't part of the story, his own story. So what I did with Stan, he's actually a tailor, and as you find out in the book, he actually has made the costumes for all these heroes over the years, and that's how he knows them. And I was really annoyed because I had this wonderful idea, spent 2 years on the script, got the artwork going, and before I got the page onto the website where it actually was revealed that he was a costume maker, The Incredibles came out, and I thought, no, I had this original idea. Nobody's ever done before, and they got theirs out first, but with Edna Mode. But never mind, I know I was first.
It happens, man. I can imagine how you felt. Oh.
Yeah. But that's his daughter and grandson, and they form a large part of the, if you like, the heart of the book while all the action's going on.
Yeah,
he's really just wants to. He's got at the very beginning, he has a fractured relationship with his daughter Jill, and really just wants to mend that relationship, but he keeps getting dragged back into these bigger issues that are ongoing.
The superheroes.
Yeah. Now the last three on the right, black guy is at the beginning, he's the future husband of Jill, Stan's daughter, and the very last scene is when they get married. And the two ladies, I've forgotten one of them's names. One of them's called Joyce. I can't remember the other one, but they work with Boudica. She runs in the modern day. I was thinking, what would she do if she was this 2,000-year-old warrior queen who was flogged by the Romans, had all her property stolen from her. Her daughters were raped in front of her. What on earth would she be doing now? So I made her this kind of, she runs this women's refuge centre in the East End of London, this Women in Crisis Centre. And these two women are from that. They're two of the people that help out in this centre. So with each one of the characters, I tried to give them this kind of support network. So none of them were just this standalone hero who, nobody knew who they were and nobody knew what they did. It was they all had this network of people around them to sort of flesh them out as characters and give them people to interact with.
Yes, very good.
Sorry, I've rambled there, but that's basically the cast.
Beautiful cast.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of lore here, so obviously David knows what he's talking about when he has created all these characters that personify, like he said, aspects of the British culture.
Just to touch on. Sorry to interrupt. Just to touch on a couple of those. I won't run through the whole lot, but with Doug, for example, who's the easiest one. He is this World War II fighter pilot, and we dig into his backstory a bit about what he did in the war. But he essentially represents the sort of the spirit of London and the Blitz, you know, the sort of stiff upper lip. Everything's got to, we carry on regardless, no matter how bad things get. He recognizes that he represents that. Some of the more subtle ones is that the Boudica character, she really represents the British sense of humor. And there's a lot of her lines are very sort of self-deprecating, in a way that I know the British aren't the only people that do it, but it is very much part of our nature that we laugh at ourselves. I mean, we'll take the piss out of everybody else as well, but we feel entitled to do that because we're quite happy to then turn our own barbs against ourselves. And she's very much that sort of person. She's often prodding people, and in fact, when I put it online, it was there were a couple of pages where people said, "Why is she being so horrible? What's this character on the page? I was liking her up until now. Why did she say that?" I said, no. That's the sense of humor. That's what we Brits do.
That's who she is.
Yeah. But I won't go through all the others, obviously.
I wanted to ask one thing though. There's all these guys here, but who's this? He's like a Judge Dredd kind of guy.
Yeah, it's funny. Somebody else said that.
That guy.
Yeah, he's a bad guy. He's one of the chief bad guys called Dominion.
Oh, right. Cool.
And he is essentially he's a mercenary, and he's quite a conflicted character in terms of what he represents. Because where I wanted to go with him was this idea that sort of one aspect of the British personality that's very dominant is, and we're not alone in this, obviously, but it's this pride in our armed forces. And we used to have the army always used to have a slogan a few decades back when they were recruiting. They said, "Join the professionals," and that was their slogan: "Join the professionals."
Nice, that's probably
So
that gets you riled up.
Yeah, so I thought, okay, well, we'll have a mercenary. Well, it won't be any more professional than that. And his character therefore became very, very easy to write. It was just basically everything is about the bottom line. Everything's about money. If you hire him, I suppose he's dead shot or something. You know, you hire him, he'll get the job done. He'll blow up whatever's necessary to achieve it. It doesn't care about
mercenary to the bone.
Yeah. And so that's who he is. But somebody when they were reading it online made the comment that how ironic it was to have this bad guy, this criminal who cared only about money, sort of represented by somebody who looked like Judge Dredd, who's all about the law. You know?
But it's a mercenary law in this case.
Yeah. But I like it. I like the helmet and the mask thing was quite unusual. I hadn't seen it done quite that way before. And so when the artist came up with that, I said, yeah, keep that. I like that.
And he's got a thermal detonator. Thermal detonator.
Yeah. He's all about blowing things up.
So you change artists throughout years, I guess. Obviously,
I changed the artist in the middle. Yeah, it was. I say it was a big project. Obviously, much bigger than we anticipated at the beginning. The artist I started with was an Indian guy called Harsho Mohan Chattaraj, and he's the guy I'm working with again on a new project now. But he basically, and I feel sorry for him with the benefit of hindsight, but he was doing pencils, inks, colors, and lettering. He was doing everything. I was doing the writing. He was doing everything else.
Hey, the jack of all trades.
Yeah, this isn't one of his pages. If you want to go back to the previous one, we come on to that one in a minute. So he was doing everything. And at the beginning, when we were talking about the project, and I said, well, okay, it's a big script. How long do you think it's going to take to do this? And he estimated 18 months. And in my own mind, I said, yeah, okay. I assume he's underestimating to get the job. So let's say 2 years. I was prepared to do that. 4 years later, we were only at the halfway point.
Oh man, yeah.
And he just said to me, David, I'm sorry, I just can't do this anymore. I know I'm letting you down, but I can't. I can't. I'm burning out. And so I said, look, just do one more chapter. I think we were at the end of chapter 7 then. I said, do one more. That'll take me to the halfway point. I'll change the end slightly so it becomes a nice little cliffhanger. I can then call that volume 1, parcel it up on its own, and I'll have to find another art team to try and do the second half.
Mm-hmm.
And the second half, if you can go to that picture again now, I got a guy in Brazil, a very good guy called E.C. Nickel, and I felt a bit guilty because I said to him, I've seen your artwork. I love it. I want you to be able to do this in your own style. I want you to feel your part of this. But at the same time, I don't want the style to be too jarringly different to what's gone before.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And he came up with this wonderful merging of the two styles. And he did the art, pencils and inks. I got somebody else to do the colors this time. Guy in Indonesia called Muammar Khairi, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And then for the lettering, by then I just about mastered Photoshop enough to be able to do the lettering myself. So the second half of the book had more of a team on it, but it still took 2 years, another 2 years to get it finished. It was a big job all round.
So when anyone wants to get a print of this, well, it's time for your plug. Well, where exactly can they purchase?
There are two sites you can order it from. It's only available online. There is the tried and trusted Indie Planet, if people know that, INDY Planet, and the name is simply Shades, SHADES, one word. If you are in the US, I would say that's the best place to get it from because obviously they dispatch from the US. If you are not in the US, if you're in Europe or the UK, or I don't know how that would affect the Far East or Australia, but certainly if you're in Europe, there is a site called comicsy.uk, comicsy.co.uk. And you can order it from there. And in that case, all they do is they pass the order on to me, and I ship it out. So you should get that then within a few days, which is obviously a lot quicker than waiting for it to arrive from the States.
Well, so one more time I'll say it. So for anyone in the States, so the name of the book is Shade. So how many pages is it altogether?
It's 2 volumes. They're both about 140 pages each. The first volume,
That's
nearly
beautiful. Nice.
Yeah. The first book, nearly 100, pretty much the whole 140 pages is story. The second book, I think, is slightly less. It's about the same number of pages in total, but there's about 100 odd pages of story, and then some pages on the character designs and why we did them the way we did, that sort of thing. Backfill.
There's a lot of reading entertainment there. 140 pages each.
It's a lot of reading as well because I'm a very wordy writer, I'm afraid.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's that story. Well, it's the story demands it. Obviously,
you get your money's worth.
Everyone has their style. Yeah, for sure. I think it's crazy that. I mean, now I could see how it took so long. Because 140 pages per volume. That's a hefty book you got there.
That is a hefty book. I originally wanted to do it just as one volume, obviously one book, one graphic novel, because it was specifically written as one story from beginning to end, with its beginning, middle, and end. It was a graphic novel, not a compilation. But when we were putting it together, I thought several times about splitting it into 2 volumes or even splitting it into 3 volumes, just because of the price point. It was like, this is going to be a big outlay money-wise for somebody buying 200 odd pages from an author they've never heard of. And yet I couldn't quite bring myself to take the plunge and say, yes, that's definitely what I'm doing. But when I had to change artist in the mid halfway point, that made it an easy decision. Okay, 2.
Yeah, the opportunity came about.
Yeah.
Sometimes some changes come for the best. Now I understand why the first fellow got burned out.
Yeah. Well, if you go back to the other page you had highlighted here, the one with the slightly surreal landscape, can you do that easily? No, not that one. Yeah, that one. This is a sign of the artist, the second artist I had, and how good he was, how much he added to it, the book. This page here, I knew I wanted this really weird sort of spirit realm that was completely
a bit of a Dante,
unreal, but at the same time, I didn't want to put too much pressure on the artist. I hadn't worked with this guy before. I didn't know what he was capable of. So I think the script basically said it's a void. There's nothing here. Maybe a few strange fish-like creatures floating around, And the rest of it is just this plain white void. And then he came back with this page with all these skulls and the little heads carved out of the rock and the people. And I thought, this is just amazing. This is.
I think it worked. I mean,
absolutely.
That's a case where, I mean, as a writer, when I do my scripts, I try not to be like Alan Moore or like so super descriptive. I try to leave. I'll be descriptive to a point, but I leave a lot of room for the artist to roam free. And in this case, it paid off, because if you were happy with it, it gives that crepuscular, otherworldly type plane. And I think kudos to the artist and you because sometimes even in how you describe things, void and like even to say all white, but like he gets it and he's putting things in there. He's seeing how you are with the narrative, and he's able to fill in the blocks. So that's a great. I love that page.
I love that page. It's one of my favorites. I don't think I've got. Yeah, I've got that. One of the things my sons did for me one of my birthdays without telling me. They took the book and they copied a couple of the pages from it and then had them printed up on canvas for me.
That's awesome.
That's one of the pages they did for me on canvas.
Oh, your sons rock. That's a nice surprise.
Yeah, they do.
That is awesome.
I'm gonna risk here. This is either this looks like a Easter Island statue crossed with maybe is it the Rockman from Saturn, which is the guys in the first appearance of Thor? You know, those guys that he battles with.
You got some range there, nice.
It could even be what's in here, the Martian Manhunter. They often draw with that kind of pointed, elongated head, don't they? It's yeah.
I always found the design of the whatever they call it, the guys in the first issue of Thor, the Rockman from Saturn. I love their design. And I think they show up in the movies as well. So that's quite. It was great when I saw them in the movie. I love that. So yeah, I mean this is so once again is Indie Planet. So that's an easy one because those guys print on demand.
Yep.
They got they have their own printing business called Kablam.
Yes.
So for anyone interested, Indie Planet, that's where they're gonna be able to find this quite easily. It's Shades, and it's 2 volumes, 140 pages each. So that's quite a lot of reading there. Wonderful,
beautiful stuff, man.
Very nice. And
do you see the hands on the tree there? It's
yeah. I only noticed now because I was looking at them like antlers. And that's it. Wow. But now, now I realize.
Yeah.
Little ants, close fist.
They kind of look like antlers, but yeah, I was that visual caught me, and I'm glad you said to take a look at it because I didn't realize the arms and the. I mean, when you zoom in on it, it's pretty out there. I like it.
Yeah.
And, what's this? Well, kind of.
That sort of jellyfish type thing.
Jellyfish, yes, that's right. And this guy here, he looks both like a the prehistoric
the pterodactyl type creature.
Pterodactyl, isn't it? But it also kind of reminds me a little bit of the bird from the Moebius book. A book that I love, but I completely forget now what it's called. I think it's Arzak. It's called Arzak, okay. And then he rides a big bird, which looks like a pterodactyl, and he looks a little bit like that. That's very, very funny. Without a hat, bunch of skulls. Yeah, well, there you go. It's good stuff that you guys were mentioning about the to and fro between yourselves as writers and the artists, and that's probably something now we could touch on the second section of the show. That's when I usually basically open up a discussion on whatever the guests are more comfortable with. Obviously, Comics Gate is always a bit that everybody likes to go into it. That is great for ratings, but it's only 2 of us here. I personally prefer to go into stuff that is more art driven and more to do with the actual conceptual side of the books. I don't know if you guys wanted to probably go into that and tell me about your experiences of as writers how easy and or how difficult it is to to have a working relationship with an artist. Not obviously not to clean the dirty laundry, but meaning how what is the process? Do you enjoy the process? Is it something complicated? Is it something that sometimes gives great dividends? Like, for example, David was mentioning the, the good experience he had with the pages as they were coming back to him. And maybe we can go back to you again on Lair. I no longer have Lair open here, so I'm just going to stop sharing the page so we can just.
Okay, let Luis go
Let's
first
talk.
because I've been talking for a bit, and I'll rest my
Yes.
voice for a bit, and I'll say something when.
It was
Okay, so
entertaining. It's good stuff. This is good discourse we got here.
so I've taken off. I've taken off the share. I hopefully now you're not seeing anything. So again,
Oh wow, cool.
it's just seeing yourselves. So yeah, back to Gilbert. I mean, obviously you have the work you have there in Lair. By the way, how many pages is Lair? It's 40 something pages. Is that right?
Well, here's the thing. I wish I could have made it a lot longer. I kind of wanted to go the route that David did. At least 120 pages is what I wanted to do. But as I was writing the script out and I'm financing, I'm calculating, I'm like, okay, if I'm paying 100 a page, 120 a page for all the work and whatnot, this is going to cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I had to, go against my desire and shorten it up. And I wrapped it up within 60. I got 66 pages, everything all together, the book completed. So it's not what I wanted, but I finished it in a way where I got closure. I'm happy. And maybe if I ever get that kind of demand, I can go back into the Lair universe and I can, bring out a 120-page type story. But right for the budgetary reasons, I had to shorten it up. So it's at 66 pages, the whole book, front to back.
I think we've lost Luis, have we?
Yeah, he's muted. Maybe he got tired of hearing me.
Oh no, I didn't fall asleep.
Okay.
Now you know what it is. I was just doing something here which I haven't done before. I'm just tweeting out now that we're on the second half of the show, and I was just going to say that you have your other book that you were mentioning. Tell me what is the name again of your other work?
Oh, so my first foray was Under the Flesh. That one
Started
started out as a web. Yeah, it started out as a web comic.
Now I've seen that somewhere. Is it still something that you're advertising, or is it still something that is currently available? Because I've seen a lot of stuff about Under the Flash.
Yeah, I was pushing that one when I was doing the Kickstarter, and then I cold canceled on the CG tip. So it started out as a webcomic. If you go to undertheflesh.com, you have some pages there, and I actually have a Gumroad link to the first 3 digital issues, where you can just download and read on my dime, just so readers could kind of see what I'm trying to do, try to get a feel for my style as a writer, the genres I like to play around with, and hopefully I could come back to finish that book. So it's kind of like a situation where David was at, where he had to take a break. I'm at that situation because the artist that I started that with, he's doing his own book and he's doing Marvel work. So his schedule was a bit cloudy. So instead of switching teams, I just left it in limbo, but I'm still going to come back to it. So I'll just let time, dictate if I got an audience, if I can kind of do it my way. But if not, I'll probably have to shift teams. I didn't want to, but sometimes you got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's a tough call. It really
Man.
hurts if you do. But I say I speak from experience. Even though I had to do it, I was really pleased with what I ended up with. As apprehensive as I was at the time, I was really pleased with the way the second volume went.
Well, I think the artwork from the first artist you had is very talented, without a doubt. But the transition isn't jarring, because I've read comic books where there's a switch in the art team and it's jarring. I've even read books where there's like 3 different art teams and it hits you really hard. The artist, for the Brazilian artist that you got, he definitely managed to coalesce kind of the first style with his own style and staying true to your vision, and then adding some uniqueness to it. So he caught the balance well. So it worked out. Yeah. So if you find that, it's great.
Yeah, very good. But tell me, what was your the reason why I was trying to find out about your other work is to basically get to the point that I wanted to know how much experience you have up until now with dealing with artists.
So that's a good question.
In the case of David, he has already 200 and something pages of collaboration, so he could always speak out of experience of how it is for a writer, and what's the process of working with an artist. But from yourself, from your Lair experience, obviously you're quite pleased with the result. We can all see it's a good result. But what do you feel as a writer when you go to an artist? How much description do you put on a script? How much do you give an artist, and or how little do you give him? And when the art comes back, do you usually ask for any edits, any changes? What's the whole process coming from you?
All right. So for me, I know we didn't want to air out dirty laundry, and I know we don't want to talk about the negatives of the art side, but I'm going to have to touch on just a little bit here and there. I'm definitely not going to mention any names.
Yeah.
But with Under the Flesh, I went through about 3 or 4 different artists, and I had a rough draft script. So I would give them 1 or 2 pages. No, as a matter of fact, 1 page, and I just wanted to see their take on 1 page. So I had one artist, and he gave me his version. And I love how David explained how when his artist added some stuff, he loved it, and it was apropos. It went right in. It was a perfect mix. I had an artist where in my story, Under the Flesh, it's like an apocalyptic story. It's not fantasy. It's end of the world type stuff. And I literally have my group hauled up in a library. And I have a scene where I have a biker gang that kind of, closes in on the library, and it's unexpected or whatnot. But the artist, the way he drew that page, it was nice, but it wasn't what he literally put the library on a rock. It's almost like on a mountain. It looked like it was on its own little planet. And it no, serious. It was not. I'm like, I had to tell him, like, what were you doing? Because I felt like they were alone. They would, like they were lonely. It's like they're on a world by their own. So he literally has this library on like a chunk of Earth that's like in the sky. It's almost like a backdrop of a galactic backdrop. And then the bikers in the forefront. It looked cool, but it's like that's where you got to stick to the scripts. It's like it's a specific thing. Just like they're outside of the library, the bikers come out and they're in the parking lot engaging the group or whatever, or they come across the library. This dude draws a planet with the library on it, and it's just like, what are you like? It threw me off. It was just upsetting because that was a paid page I paid for. But anyway, so that's just showing that there's a lot of trial and error that goes with finding an artist. And when I found JL Giles after 3-4 different attempts of having artists, paying for trial pages, because again, you can, if you're someone that has cachet and you're like, hey, I need a test page, you'll probably have a ton of artists jumping at the whim to do a test page for you. But when you're like me and David, we're nobodies. If we don't have a good rapport with an artist, it might be hard to get them to do a free page. Some of them might require a payout or something. So for me, once I found JL, it was just, it was poetry in motion. And then the whole fact of when he got busy, it was kind of hard to, after all I've been through, it's like traumatic. It's like, man, I don't want you to leave. I don't want to switch our teams. I found the perfect guy. But since the Lair team, everything with the Lair team worked out, I felt like if I do pick up Under the Flesh, I'd use the Lair team to kind of piggyback over. And that's when I had that campaign. I was promoting Under the Flesh. Okay, we're back. It's been a 2-year lull. We're back. And I got the Lair team back on it. We're ready to go. And again, that's when I stumbled on a Comicsgate movement. I did a show with Edwin Boyette talking about Under the Flesh on Kickstarter. And they're all like, man, it's just like, you can't do Kickstarter, the format, we don't like it. And then another tip that I got, not on that show, but someone else was like saying, hey, if you want to be Comicsgate, you got to just drop the Kickstarter. So I dropped it cold turkey, and I just said, let me just reissue Lair. But
do you know why there's such a negative feeling towards Kickstarter? Has somebody filled you in on the history?
I found out that one of the creators, he left one of the big 2 corporations and he did his own book, and it got crowdfunded, Jawbreakers, Richard Meyer, and he got the money, but Kickstarter didn't want to give him the money on, I guess it's the behest of maybe one of the figureheads from.
Not quite. You're almost right. You've got the right book.
Okay.
Essentially, what happened?
Okay, please, fill me in.
Yeah, Jawbreakers was going to be the first big Comicsgate book. Yeah, in fact, I can't even remember if we were called Comicsgate at the time, but certainly this sort of consumer-led revolution, whatever you want to call it. Jawbreakers was going to be the first book. Richard put it on Kickstarter originally. He was all ready to go, and he was ready to press the button. We were all watching him live on video, and he was ready for him to press the button and say it's now live, so that we could all rush in and try and be the first one to get a copy, to order the copy. And then it became clear there was some sort of hiccup behind the scenes, and it wasn't clear what it was. At the time, he said there is a problem. I don't know why they're being so long. We found out later that the people who vet this at Kickstarter are I think it's ex-DC, not ex-Marvel. They're ex-DC people, and they of course hate Comicsgate and anything to do with it, and they hate Richard Meyer even more than most. And they were basically trying to say, this is.
It's not original or copying or imitation or something, or doesn't, like a disclaimer, like doesn't fall within Kickstarter.
Yeah, something like that. It's like you're one of these outright Nazis, and we don't have anything to do with pushing that kind of politics, which of course it wasn't. I mean, the book is a story about a bunch of superheroes who are freeing a giant ape monster from bad guys. It's as apolitical as you could possibly get. But it was clearly that this person was saying
that's a conspiracy, man. That just
exactly. We do not like this guy. We are not going to sanction this book. And they kept him waiting. And then while we were on the air, he said, "Okay, I'll tell you what. I'm going to go and try Indiegogo instead." And it was done within about 10 minutes. And
the revolution began.
And since then, you don't have to be on Indiegogo. But the real, the point is, you can get financed, especially if you're looking for a smaller amount. You can probably get financed without appearing on any of the sort of the big guys shows. There's the Ethan Van Skyvers, etc., etc. But at the same time, they won't have you on there if you're on Kickstarter because of what they did to that book.
Oh, that makes total sense. Forget now it shows how the people with power, and they want to mute someone the extent they're willing to go. And if you have a project that the crowd is behind, you got back, it's ready to just press the button or even launch, and then you got this whole charade or whatnot, and that it doesn't fulfill our terms or whatnot. That's just nonsense. That it's scary, because I think honestly with Comicsgate, I feel like a part of the industry is kind of scared of this movement and what it would do to comics. But if you run comics the way they're supposed to be run, with not all this political agenda, you can have political ideas and viewpoints in comics for sure. Stories are filled with people that have that's fine. But when it becomes propaganda and it becomes, milking for it doesn't, and it's gimmicky in certain ways, especially with how they handle diversity, it's not original. It's not innovative. It hurts. You're hurting the medium, So I think that's where Comicsgate comes out, and that's where you have the rebellion, and it's taken the way it has. So I mean, it makes all the sense right there. So
yeah,
that's actually quite a. I had no idea about that.
That's lucky I was on.
No, thank you, because that clarified a little bit too for me.
No idea about that live stream of the Kickstarter thing with Richard Meyer. That's
Could you imagine if that would have just went on there? Like, who knows? Like, Comicsgate probably wouldn't have been what it is. So things happen for a reason, and it helps. You know, even the small guys like us who are trying to find our voice and find our tribe of supporters to, you know, get noticed, to rise out from obscurity. But
yeah, as I say, there's no guarantee that Ethan or others will have you on the show. But if you were on Kickstarter, they definitely wouldn't.
Well, it's funny that you say it, because I did a live stream with Antonio Bryce. He was aided a lot by Ethan Van Sciver, and Ethan kind of had put him on because his Kickstarter, I think, failed twice, didn't raise any kind of money, and then he got a little push from Ethan, and he did his little push as well, and got on a lot of different shows. And he's almost at 50K in his book. So that's just a testament to show how, if you're thorough and determined, you can definitely, you know, it takes a lot of work to do it. I mean, you need the fortitude to be willing to be on these shows, to do it every day, day in, day out. It is work. It is like a second job. It's exhausting. So, but he was able to come out good because he was on the show with Ethan. And I caught a live.
He's on every day now, isn't he? I think he does the morning show with him every day.
That's the thing. I need to try to do the morning show. I work at a school Monday through Friday, so it's so hard to have time to just be on there. But I caught him in one of the night shows. I think it was 2 days ago, and I did the super chat, because you pay a little money. He sees it, he reads it, and at the moment in the show, they were doing like some pitches, a 60-second pitch, and one guy had, I think, 3 seconds left. And I did a super chat. I'm like, "Hey, Ethan, I'll take those 3 seconds." And he said a little shout to me. I did another super chat for $5. I said, "Hey, I'm a Christian horror writer. If that sounds intriguing, check out Lair, my first Indiegogo, cold canceled Kickstarter to join Comicsgate." I said, "Okay, Gilly Writes Comics. Let's see. You know, send me a message. We'll see if I could get you on here." You know, so again, it takes time. You know, I did send him a message. His inbox is probably flooded. And then
he gets thousands and thousands of emails every day.
I mean, I can't even imagine. So, like, I'm just going to take my time and see what happens.
Do keep trying. It's definitely worth doing. The one thing to remember from other people I've seen on there with him, and from what I've heard of you so far, you won't have any problem with this. But he is very conscious that he is doing a show. He's entertaining his audience. So, in the first place, for you to be on there, you've got to have a really high quality product. And from what I've seen, there's no doubt you've got that. The second thing is you have to be entertaining. He expects you to entertain his audience as well as having a good product.
I'll just air him some of these dirty laundry stories I got. I didn't even tell you the one about Lair, but yeah, I definitely got some stuff to talk about.
Yeah. But he will like that if you're upbeat, if you're buoyant, if you talk enthusiastically about your project. And from what you've done here, there's no doubt you're going to do that. I mean, you'll be great on there, but you might have to remind him a couple of times.
Yeah, I probably might have to hound him and throw a couple shillings his way through via the super chats. But well worth it, I'm sure.
Yeah. The other thing is to work your way up, like this one that we're doing now. Appear on a couple of the smaller channels, and then I think John Malin does a very good one, which is he's got about 2,000 followers, and just sort of slowly work your way up the sort of subscriber
to
numbers.
The ranks. Yeah, for sure. And do your own little channel. It's all part of the support system and the community, and just to show kind of the difference that what Comicsgate is. You know, everyone has their own channel, their own shows, and you know, it's a support system, like a culture. I feel like we can
like the roots
demonstrate. Oh yeah.
By the way, do you guys, for everyone listening, you have your own channels here on YouTube? So anyone wanting to see anything you have on, Gilbert, do you have any channel on YouTube at the moment?
I just opened up a channel when I did the Indiegogo, and I did 2 little videos, not expecting anything, and I got 3 subscribers, so I was kind of happy about that. So I said, okay, I guess, you know, I'll just talk about my things that interest me and comics that interest me, and I kind of feel like there's no blueprint to do your own channel. I feel like you just got to be yourself. I feel like if you try to copy and paste other people's work or their styles and I just feel like it might not be, interesting enough, or people might just see it's kind of forced. So I'm just me, and I'm just talking about Comic Skate. And one thing I did say in one of my videos that's going to be coming up is just that I'm on a budget. I'm a first time dad, and it's it's not like I can just dump the whole paycheck on the local comic shop the way I used to. So now, in being conscious of my spending habits, I decided to just support Comic Skate comic books for my, I guess what you would call it, for my fix, so to speak. So I share some of the books that I'll be backing, and I've backed people that have backed my stuff. And also David, I definitely want to check out Indie Planet, and I'm definitely gonna back your book. Definitely want to read all those 200 pages, and I kind of like what you're doing, and I definitely gonna back that. So I appreciate you backing Lair, and I'm definitely gonna get my copy of Shades.
Thank you very
So that's
much.
what I just want to do, just to support like the real indie movement, because even though Image is indie, Dark Horse is indie, they still push. It's like they have their own thing they do. So I feel like the true indie market is Comic Skate. That's the way I see it, or others that are outside of that mainstream, mainstream publications.
Absolutely. David's big graphic novel is definitely worth checking it out. And David, do you have any channel here at the moment on?
I don't have a channel. I keep thinking, because everybody keeps saying you need one, and I keep thinking, yeah, I'd love to start one. And then the problem at the moment, I feel, for those of us who are late to the party, is you need a unique take. I think there's no point at this stage just starting up a channel and talking about comic books or talking about the drama in the comics industry. There's too many people doing that already. They have good, solid followings. You need, even Ethan, when you think DNC and some of the others, Nim Headroom, That Umbrella Guy, Just Some Guy, Captain Cummings in those days, that they were doing such a good job of covering all that already, that when Ethan started, he really needed a slightly different take on it to build his audience. He started by doing his portfolio reviews and drawing lessons, and the numbers were increasing slowly. But it was when he tapped into the Star Wars niche, that it exploded. And I think that's it. You've got to find something you're interested in that you can talk about that other people are not already talking about. And he made a go of that. And obviously, I think he might even have overtaken DNC by now. They both were pushing 90,000 last time I looked. 90,000 subscribers.
God, yeah. That's incredible. Jesus.
Yeah. But I think if I was going to start it, I haven't yet thought about what I could do that would be different. I've got a novel I'm working on. I keep thinking maybe I should just get myself a big old-fashioned sort of leatherette chair and sit there and read stories to everybody or something. A book
read a page, or read like a page or something, or write a story in a page, and you can start pushing that. Just something that's you. Yeah, you got to think about it, David. You got to enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're not going to enjoy it, it's going to become like work. And not going to want to do it, and there's no blame in that, because who wants to do something they don't want to do? So take your time finding it. If you find it, go for it, and there's no, don't just do it just to do it, because you're not, you have to enjoy whatever it is you're going to
do. The idea is, the reason I would do it is because is to find my own audience, so that when I've got another comic, I say, that I'm working on with the artist who did the first book of Shades. And that we're not planning on launching that till next year, but I feel like we therefore ought to be thinking about launching a channel now to start building up a following before we launch. But as I say, I haven't yet figured out a way to do it that would, as you say, that would be me in the first place, and that other people would be interested in. That's not already being done. But it's certainly something I'm thinking about and trying to crack that conundrum.
Well,
you'll crack it, yeah.
It's all down to imagination, and then from there, it's only a question of budget and time. If one can imagine that he wants to do,
you say that as if budget and time are both infinite.
Well, the time for me is definitely concerned.
Time is rough.
Budget I can always get around.
Yeah.
Today's
But you're
technologies,
right. You're right. I am agreeing.
today technologies with what you can do in terms of video editing and all that. I mean, actually, right now, everybody's so lucky that they're at their fingertips. They actually can do a lot as far as a funny and a big budget almost video of some sort and present it out there, and then it will look great.
Mm.
HD to start with, and all that. But the problem is the time. Those things are very time consuming, especially if a person is not actually a professional video editor or a special effects person. But yeah, but at least the tools are there. The tools are there to do the great
They
thing.
are.
Or you can go the other way and just do like Richard Myers, just sitting down and having a comic on his knees and read it and review it. There you
Yeah.
go. That's the other way. I mean,
Yeah.
I think
Well, I could. Sorry to interrupt. Go on.
no, I mean, I think it's not much longer, but I think uh, you were talking about finding kind of a particular kind of video, something do something interesting, something that hasn't been done before, or that some people are not actually tapping on. Obviously, it's always difficult to find something that is completely original. At the same time, you also don't want to repeat of what the other 100 guys are doing already.
Mm.
For example, my channel, I'm doing. I decided I had a look at all the other channels, and I've decided that the best thing to do is what everyone that is actually a pro of this platform, meaning the guys that actually run YouTube and the guys that have been video editors, and they've been doing this business for the last 15 years or so, and they all say the same. Yes, try something original, put some time into it, and a little bit of money if you can. Try to find your audience, but that's always difficult because your audience, if it doesn't come to you and you got to go to them, that becomes tricky. But
Yeah.
what they mostly say for anyone then like yourselves wanting to start a channel, and again, I've had a channel here for many years, but only lately I've been actually investing more time in it. So I'm not at all the specialist about it. But from what I've learned, from what I heard, what they say is try to do at least something every day or almost every day if you can. It can
Yeah.
be something small. It can be nothing special. You don't need to spend 5 hours after your day job and have time for nothing else, not even tweet. You don't need to spend that time in front of your video editor and doing something which is gonna take you a lot of work and then it's gonna have 2 views and 1 like. You don't need that. What you need is to do at least create an habit for whatever audience you're gonna have. And what do they mean with that? Is do try then to do something daily. If you can do it daily, then do it every 2 days or every 3 days or even once a week. But do it always at that time, at that particular time, so you can then create the habit on whatever captive audience you're gonna have. That they know that okay, this is the guy that has a video coming on what every 2 days or every twice a day or every once a week or whatever. And then what they also suggest is try to diversify the kind of videos you do. So, for example, just like and I think deep down is really what is the core of YouTube, isn't it? Which is an alternative TV channel. And
Mm.
so each individual channel, almost works like an individual TV station. What you have in TV stations, you have different shows coming on at different hours over a different subjects. So that's the second thing they suggest. Try to do 2 or 3 or 4 series of videos, which are not alike. So, for example, myself, just to give an idea, I'm doing now the 100 Days of Comics, which just started now this week. This is something that is not my idea. Some other guys have already done. The last one that I've seen doing was Jeff Lafferty. He had a kick, sorry, Indiegogo right now, also listed on the Comics Guide. Is the Berserker not? I don't know if you guys have seen it. You probably have seen a little bit of the art in that book. Um, and he was doing it. So it's a challenge where a guy tries to finish a book within 100 days or thereabouts. even if it's not a book, at least a story or whatever. Now, this is mostly for artists because, typing and kind of making a video about that. Sorry, guys, but it's not that interesting to see. Although, obviously, the process of creating is always great. Doesn't matter where it comes from.
No. When you're writing, the typing is a very small part of it. It's the staring at a blank screen that occupies most of the time.
That's the thing.
That's really boring.
If we could make a speed video of a writer musing and then writing, that would be great. But this works mostly for artists. So if you have that advantage and you can do some art, then there you go. That's something I'm doing right now. It's 100 Days of Comics, which, to be honest, it's between 1 and 2 hours of me also staring at the page. Huh? Don't worry, there's a lot of that happening, huh? And then just making 2 lines. Yeah? But sometimes, you eat the flow, and I can actually make a page. So that's one thing I'm doing, and the other thing I'm doing is, like Gilbert, I'm just going over some comics. In my case, again, you like David was saying as well. Try not to repeat what everyone is doing. Try to find kind of a niche kind of thing, a shtick that works. My shtick is I go to classic books, and again, everybody does that. But what it is that instead of me just focusing on a particular title or a particular artist, I'm just going through some runs. Like I grabbed the runs that I like the most, and that's the thing I got me into comics to start with was that there was titles, right? So I started reading Spectacular Spider-Man when I was a kid, and I read Shang-Chi, The Hands of Kung Fu, but I straight away inclined myself to a particular set of artists and not others. So I was never a big fan of Jack Kirby to start with. Now, okay, it's different. Jack Kirby is an acquired taste, like most of us know.
Oh, yeah.
But straight away, I love Jim Starlin and what he was doing with Captain Marvel. So I'm more inclined of liking certain runs in certain series. So I'm focusing on that for another line of videos. And again, this is aimed at you guys and Gilbert, because you're starting your channel, and David is thinking about starting his own. There you go. That's something I'm doing. It's kind of a hit and miss kind of thing. For example, the other day I did a video on Daredevil's run of Frank Miller's run on Daredevil, the original one from 1980. And again, obviously, that's a big name in comics. You will always get views from that because it's a question of word search. So Frank Miller, they jump on that. Next one I've done was Kazar, which was the third series he had, as well, also from the beginning of the 80s. A lesser known book from Marvel. It just happens that it's a series that I like, and that has hardly any views because again, not many people know that. And the third, the third set of videos I do is this ones, the interviews, the Friday night show or the Saturday night show. So there you go. That's something to start there, and I've been slowly building an audience about since I started actually putting time on this. And again, this goes for anyone wanting to start doing these things. I had only 2 subscribers, which was a couple of friends. Although been here in this platform since 2010, I think, or even before that. I always had only those 2 subscribers, and now we're already close to 50. So there you go. In only 2 months, we already went up quite a lot. So,
there you go.
And then
that's a good jump for 2 months, man. 50.
Yeah.
That's 50 is 50.
Yeah, I mean,
50 people that kind of want to hear what you got to say, or they're just intrigued to check you out. So that's awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah, and also, I mean, you get to a certain critical mass, and you build up a kind of momentum, I guess, like a snowball effect. But getting the ball rolling at the beginning is always hard.
Absolutely, that is the hardest thing. The hardest thing is you're desperately clinging to those 10 people, those 20. Those 50, and then finally those 100. When you get to the 100, you go like, "Oh, this is great." You know that
the 100 mark, the century mark, it's coming.
It's like the New Year's Eve of 2000. 1999 to 2000. Whoa, it's the big millennium. It's the Y2K. 100 people. The next day it's going to drop back to 98 or 96. But doesn't matter.
It was the same, and I think Gilbert, you said one of your books was originally a web comic as well. And when I was putting shades on the web, it was exactly the same. It's like you get on there and you're desperate for every single subscriber you can get.
Oh,
And
yeah, sure.
and the funny thing is, when I first started seeing how badly behaved the industry pros were online, the comic industry pros, and how abusive they were towards customers.
Oh,
And I thought these guys should go away and do a webcomic for a few years. Just not put their own name on it so that they get followers immediately, but just do an anonymous webcomic and see how important it is to cherish every single subscriber. And then I learned that they were actually recruited from webcomics, a lot of them. And I thought, well, they forgot that lesson pretty quick.
It's not for the faint of heart, I tell you.
No.
It's nail biting. You can't, and you know what's funny? It's like, and I feel it's, again, maybe it's the conspiracy theory in me, or the person who just likes to feel like there's an outside force that wants to keep unknown people kind of under the thumb. I've put Lair on a couple Reddit groups and got shot down, and I'm like, man, look at the cover, look at it. Like, I'm just thinking, like, man, I mean, like, I know not everyone's gonna like it, but I mean, like, why is it getting shot down so fast? But it's because I don't want to say it's a hive mind mentality, but like, it's almost like like Garfield, right? I mean, you could get a 1,000 likes. Charlie Brown, Peanuts, they get, and well deserved. But you put something new and put something fresh and say, hey, I'm trying this out. It's almost like, who the hell are you? Like, get out of here, like, this is an exclusive club. Where are you trying to get in, But
as I say, when I put Shades up, as I say, we started in 2003, 2004, and I think this is such a shame, because when I started, the webcomic community, that I belonged to anyway, the site I was on, it was so supportive. Every creator was trying to help every other creator. You'd leave comments on each other's latest page. You'd recommend it to other readers. You say, hey, if you're liking this, go and look at this guy. He's a really good guy, or it's a really good comic. And it was so supportive. And I did hear, as I say, this time round, as I started to get into comics again, I've seen a couple of people saying, God, the webcomics community is really toxic these days. What? It used to be such a wonderful place to be. But I guess, as you say, the infection is spreading.
Yeah. Well, that webcomic thing is also good, because it kind of builds up your a core audience, which then you obviously will know. You can use some of that audience to actually sell your physical copies. So it's almost like a creation of
Well, you'd hope so, but again, if you look at if you listen to John Malin when he talks about the two campaigns he's done now, Jawbreakers and his own, what's his own one called? I want to say Grave Diggers. That's not right. Graveyard Shift. He said, Richard has got. He didn't have 90,000 subscribers then on YouTube, but say he had 60, 70,000 or something. He said that the percentage of people that will actually then translate into a sale is minimal. It's a very small percentage. It's a large number if your base number's big enough. But I can't remember how many Jawbreaker sold. I think it was last time I saw. I think it was closing in on 10,000, and that 10% of his subscriber base, or whatever it is. I mean, that's exceptional. I would say you're probably looking at something in single figures percent.
You mean from the audience they get from YouTube?
From YouTube, and I'm saying therefore the same is true of webcomics. You can have this big people base of people following your webcomic, but of course they're already getting their fix for free.
Yes.
So the percentage of those that will actually translate into a sale at the end is going to be quite small. I mean, I have had there are people who said, "Wow, this is one of the few webcomics I would definitely go and pay for in hard copy," and thanks to them that they actually do. But you need a huge base for it to really make a difference. Yeah.
To justify a big printing. I think like if you do it the way like Luis is saying in terms of trying to handling a YouTube channel, again, it's hard, but like you kind of do a page a week is the best I could say. Even that's hard. Multiple pages a week is a lot. A page every week, you try to stick to that and promote it. It's free if people enjoy it. Like again, the hard thing is exposing it out there, because you could be tweeting about your book and it's free, but again, it's just it's hard. It's hard. It's hard. It's just I think once you have the book finished, and let's say if you did every page like that as an update, that could somehow kind of work. You got to be active too with promoting, which is a job in itself. Even just promoting, not even doing YouTube shows, like just promoting, just getting on the computer, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, and just, hey, check my book out. Like, you got to have energy to do that. Sometimes in your personal day, the routine, whatever normal life gets you, and then you got to sit down and do this. It takes a lot. So it's a combination of everything. Luck also helps.
Well, luck is a factor that's too often underestimated, I think.
Oh yeah.
But you're right. I mean, with my book, when I finally got it printed, as I say, it took 7 years to do, and then when we got to the end, I won't go into details. I had some issues in my private life, which meant that the second volume didn't get printed for another year or so.
Mm-hmm.
By the time I got it all done, I just wanted to get onto another project, and I thought, okay, it's in print now. I'll tell people it's there, which I did about twice, and I never bothered to promote it anymore. It was just, I'm not interested in that. I want to go on to something else. And it's seeing people pushing these projects now, and the amount of work they put into it, the number of times a day they plug it, not just per week but per day, has made me realize, this is what I'm doing wrong. You've finished this book, you've got it out there, you believe in it, it's a good product, but unless you're sort of posting about it 2 or 3 times a day, no one's even going to know it exists. And it really is 2 or 3 times a day. That's not an exaggeration. You look at the way the successful Indiegogo campaigns have pushed theirs, and I know, as I say, the big ones, the huge ones, have had the push from Ethan and others, but even without that, they have been on Twitter relentlessly.
Yeah, you got to be incessant about it. And for me, like, I don't want to drown my Twitter feed with just posts about just my book. I kind of did that earlier on, not really knowing about, like in 2014 when I just did Under the Flesh, like it was new for me. So that's kind of what I did. But now with the whole Comicsgate and being connected, like I'll post a lot about other stuff. I'll retweet other stuff, and then I'll mix in 1 or 2 tweets about what I'm doing. So it's more like organic and just me being me and supporting others and also showing my work as well. And I think that is a way to go. But again, that takes time and effort. Like even now I'm doing this show. We got a good little roll here. So then imagine after this to then go and start tweeting and stuff. It's just like, man, I just need to take a nap for a bit. Or I just, I got to hold my son. I got to do this. Or like, I got to, walk the dog for whatever, but you know what I mean? You got to find the perfect rhythm, and you got to be relentless too as well. It's just not easy, but
and you got to have a thick skin to do it as well, because I think most of us, writers or artists, we tend to be quite introverted in some ways. I mean, we get amongst people we know, people we feel comfortable with, and we're fine, we chat, we laugh. But the idea of actually saying, hey, go buy my book. This is the greatest book on the shelf. You really need this one. It's just not us. It doesn't come naturally to most of us.
I don't like saying, hey, buy this. I don't. I like to show you, hey, what do you think? And okay, but to say outright, hey, buy my book. Hey, help me out. Hey, I hate that, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
but we have to learn to do it. We have to. Yeah.
We got to do it in a way, I think, that's it's not so much as, begging and everything. It's kind of like being organic about it, trying to be natural, and it's tough. Again,
it's somehow conveying the enthusiasm you've got for it.
True.
And if you listen to less so, I would say, on Iron Sights, but when Richard did Jawbreakers, when John did Graveyard Shift, and Cyberfrog, obviously, and Rainbow Brute, you can just hear the excitement in these guys' voices, the love they have for their characters. And I think, well, how do I get that? I mean, I feel that. How do I convey it when I speak to people, when I tweet, but that's what you've got to do. You've got to somehow transfer what you feel about those characters and that story to the audience so that they feel it as well.
That's that energy. Yeah. You got to master that.
Yeah, or hire somebody who can.
Or that too, yeah, for sure.
On that note, I'd like to go on record here, which is something that I've already repeated several other times live, but I'll say it again. I'm my worst salesman yet. I cannot sell my stuff, even if my life depended on it.
It's
Like
tough, man. It is
like
tough.
Gilbert was saying, every time I'm trying to pitch my stuff, it's like sounds like I'm like passing a rotten egg,
I
instead
hate
of
that. Yeah.
a scrambled dish,
Oh man. Oh
like
man.
I feel guilty, I'm like, you really want it? You sure?
Yeah.
Don't buy it. No, you're gonna be disappointed. So not really. It's like you were saying, you got to believe in the characters.
Lewis,
And
you're echoing. You're echoing, Lewis.
oh, sorry about that. Better now? No,
No, still there.
still there. Let me see if I can fix it. All right. How about now?
Much better.
Okay.
Better, yeah. Let's just like I was saying, it's for me it's tough to sell my stuff. I actually have a lot of times I copy and paste reviews, well, short reviews from other people about my books, the good ones, and I let them do the trick because they say it much better than I could ever do it. Funny enough, Gilbert was saying about tweets of the overcharging your Twitter feed with adverts and plugs for your book.
Mhm.
Well, the worst that can happen is actually what I'm seeing a lot of times is people plugging their book without an actual link to where the book is for sale.
Yeah.
People probably so burned out. They did everything but plug the link.
Yeah.
Exactly, and I keep on
Oh my
I keep on
gosh.
messaging these guys to help them out. Say, link, guys, please. Just
Yeah,
add a
where's the
little link.
link in there?
Got everything there. Just put the link. Back on the web comics, just because this might be useful. I know a few guys. I've never been a big enthusiast on web comics. It's something I'm just not that
Mhm.
much into. But obviously, I understand there's which I just found out recently, about 2 years ago. There's a whole world out there with people
Mhm.
actually launching and reviewing, and a whole community of web comics, which is
Mhm.
great. And I've seen good works in there. Special works, something that I would say this deserves to be in the print. This
Oh
is
Mhm.
yeah.
this
Yeah.
is
Yeah. Yeah.
solid work. For example, I know a guy very well that has a great book. It's a black and white book, and it's already in book four. Similar to what David is doing. When I say book, it's a proper book. It's about 100 pages each. So they're really albums. They're really big
Mhm.
graphic novels. And what he does is, at least for the little that I know of webcomics, I think this works to the advantage of whoever wants to do a web comic. And of course, this might even work in your case, David. Is that he puts one, you launch the first one on the web for free, and there's an option to buy the print copy, which, because the book is so wonderful in terms of his art, is so detailed and it's so
Mhm.
complex that it's definitely something you want to have in print. But just in case you really are not the guy that buys a book and just likes to watch it online, what he's done is a smart thing. He has put the first book there online for free, all good and well. Link on the page to buy the actual copy. And then what he does is that he did the second volume, but he did not put it online. He said, "Here's volume one. Read this one. If you're interested and you want to carry on the adventure, you gotta buy volume two." And then there's a link
Mhm.
there to both volume one and volume two in print, but you can pick one or the other. And then after about a year, he put a volume two online again for free, and then saying, "Okay, but now volume three is coming," because it takes him about a year. It takes him about a year to do each one. And I tell you, it's really great work, and it really is. I mean, I'm not able to do what he does in a year, to be honest, 100 something
Mhm.
pages, and he does it all by himself. His wife, I think, helps him with
Sheesh.
grayscaling the book a little bit.
Mhm.
She does the lettering, and then that's it. So it's really a family business, right?
That's
Uh,
nice. You got the wife that could do that.
yeah, and again, the same
That's
process.
awesome.
He puts it online, one volume after another. But the thing is that he doesn't give you a release schedule. He's not going to say to
Yeah.
you, "Well, in exactly 12 months, you get the other one for free here." He doesn't say that, because actually, I think from the second to the third, it was almost only 8 months, I think, of difference, or even less, that they became available online.
Mm.
So again, as a fan, if you really dig the work, which is really easy to dig in these guys, and you enjoy the story, and you become hooked, then chances are you're probably going to buy the print, probably, because there's more of a 50-50 chance that whoever reads the webcomic is going to buy the print, because again, they won't know the rest of the story unless they actually buy the physical copy, unless it's 12 months later. So they still got to wait the whole year, in principle, to get the next volume available online for free. So there you go. That's a strategy, and I'm sure it's a strategy that many of them employ. Again, I'm not the biggest aficionado of the web comics, but I think there's a few ways you can go about it and still make a nice, even if you don't make a nice little profit. At least you have something that is retailing, and that's the most important thing, isn't it? Like, if you build up an audience of up to 1,000 people, which is right, because and going back to those big numbers in terms of YouTube channels, the 70,000 people, the 90,000 people. I'm pretty sure that a lot of those people are actually subscribing to those channels. I'm pretty sure, I'm not going to say obviously all of them. In the case of John Mallon and Ethan the Skyver and Richard C. Meyer, but I'm pretty sure that at least a good half of them are actually their customers. They're the actual guys buying the book, because obviously YouTube is worldwide. So anyone tuning into those channels is tuning in for different reasons. Either it's just a bit of entertainment, or because they're actually interested in hearing what these guys have to say in that particular subject.
Yeah, I started listening mainly because I don't know how I stumbled across them particularly, because as I say, I pretty much considered myself out of comics for a long time, and I don't know how or why I stumbled across diversity in comics, and I think it might have been, I don't know this for a fact, but it was around, I suppose I started getting back in roughly around the times of the sort of infamous Milkshake Girl debacle. And I think it may have been as simple as I was seeing this term online and I didn't know what it meant, so I started hunting down definitions and not getting very satisfactory answers. And I think I possibly found a few YouTube channels because of that. But really, I was drawn to D&C because of the reviews. It was nothing to do with the drama and the revolution, whatever you want to call it. It was more, I certainly hadn't been reading mainstream comics for quite a long time, and I thought, well, he's telling me which ones are good, and his critiques, certainly at the beginning, they were very detailed in terms of not just this art is crap, but this perspective's out, or that's a tracing of a such and such, and this is, and it was very, very detailed and very clinical and very clever, as well as being witty and amusing, and it's engaging personality coming through. And I ordered several books on his recommendation, and others. I think Englentine of I Love Comics was one of the few who was regularly recommending Dan Abnett's Aquaman, and so I bought sort of 5 volumes of that over the following year or so. But it really was. It was just like if I want to read mainstream comics, you go into your local comic shop if you've got one, and you've no idea which ones are good and which ones aren't, and how they've been received when they were first released. And to have somebody going through them like that was really good. And then, of course, I became more aware of the drama that was going on, and that's a whole other story, which we perhaps haven't got time for today. But
a lot of drama for sure.
But it was literally that. It was literally for the reviews to say, okay, what am I going to go and buy? And actually, the interesting thing about webcomics in this sense is that, as you said, there are some very, very good webcomics out there. The trouble is that as the creative process has become democratized in that way, as now that anybody can put a webcomic up there, the same as anybody can put a book on Amazon, you have got a lot of dross, and there isn't yet a reliable way of sifting through it and finding out which ones are good, which ones are worth your time exploring. And you have to go through 10, maybe 20 bad comics just to get to the 1 or 2 good ones, and then another 10 or 20 bad comics before you find a second good one. And a lot of people are not going to bother to do that. But it's a shame because there are some gems out there.
I don't even know where to start looking for webcomics, to be honest. When I come across one, it's usually as a link from someone's website or from someone's Twitter feed or Instagram or something. I personally, as well, I don't remember how I came across the videos of these chaps, Richard Meyer. No, I mean, I know how I came across it in the Skyver because I sometimes I go and watch Jim Lee videos of him doing some work, and and as a recommended video option, I'm sure Ethan was there with his art videos, his portfolio reviews and all that. As far as comics goes, as comic reviews go, like David. I've been out of comics for a long, long time. When I go to a comic book shop, it's probably to buy an action figure. I don't even. I mean, I pass by Marvel and DC. I don't even look at them. I just walk by. I haven't bought a Marvel book since I stopped reading them back in the late '90s. I have zero interest. I couldn't care less who Scarlet Witch is dating at the moment, or how many times her brother has been resurrected.
Whoever she's dating is probably female.
Most likely. Although I know Scott Summers was tapping Emma Frost, but beyond that, this was actually told me. Look, just for you guys to see how off comics I am. I was a few years back, so we're probably thinking about 8 years ago, or a little bit more than that, probably 10 years ago. I was in the Forbidden Planet, London, and I was in the queue to have a couple of old comic books from the X-Men run written by Chris Claremont. And because I happen to have these two books, which are signed by John Byrne, the artist, and I, just by coincidence, came across the advert of Forbidden Planet saying, hey, Chris Claremont will be this weekend at the London shop, And I said, look, I never done this. I never queued up to have anything signed. But because this friend of mine had got me these two books with a signature with John Byrne, I thought, well, maybe I'm going to queue up and I'm going to have the two books with Chris Claremont and John Byrne. And Chris Claremont is not in talking terms with John Byrne. So apparently he does not like to sign his name next to. Yes. Now, this was all told to me in the queue as I'm queuing up to Chris Claremont. And there's a guy, a proper fanboy, in front of me. And he says, hey, what do you got, man? Well, I got X-Men, the Dark Phoenix saga, Oh, the originals. Yeah, great. Oh, they're looking good. Yeah. Yeah, but you're going to have that signed by Chris Claremont? Yeah. But he said John Byrne's signature there? Yeah, it's pretty cool inside. Ooh, that's not going to be nice. Why? Why they're not in talking? Really? And then as I'm getting there, that's when he actually tells me that Scott Summers is dating Emma Frost. I'm like, really? Hey, come on. The last time I saw these characters, I read these characters back in 1988 with the Inferno saga. It was Inferno series, and that's how much out of the loop I am. And so, and rarely then when I go to a comic shop, if it is not for the merchandise, I end up just browsing very briefly all the indie labels there. So we're talking IDW and below IDW. So anything. I mean, the most unknown the label is, that's probably what I'm going to gravitate to. But I got to say that although the videos of Richard C. Meyer, I'm pretty sure they actually fell into my feed, my YouTube feed, not because they were comic book related, because because I'm not interested. I don't usually look for comic book reviews. I even actually find them a bit boring. I might have had a look at the motion comic on YouTube once in a while, which there are not that many of those things available. So it's just a comic book like it is presented in Comixology, which the sequential art is animated somehow.
I'm not a big fan of motion comics. Like a lot of people, I tend to think like happy with animation, happy with comics, and I'm not quite happy with where they sit in the middle. But there is one that I found years ago, and it's disappeared, or at least it disappeared after I'd been following it for a couple of years, and I don't know if it's ever been resurrected. But there's one called something like Chrome. I don't know if you've come across that. But I know when I read that one at the beginning, when I first found it, I thought this is really good. Perhaps there is a future for this medium. It may not, there may not be many that actually distinguish themselves as separate from comics and animation, but that one I do remember that one.
It's an intriguing proposition, the motion comics. So I remember making a few searches on that, but comic book reviews definitely not. I'm not interested in that, but I'm definitely interested in the way that Richard C. Meyer does them, because he ends up tearing up the book, which I don't like when he tears up the book. Personally, I don't think any book should be torn up, because any book is a testament for future generations of what good and bad was done. So I think everything, especially any sort of art, should be preserved. But fair enough. He's his dollar if he wants to.
It's not as if he's tearing up every copy.
It's a joke, and isn't it? It's a joke, and I understand the joke. But I'm pretty sure his videos fell into my feed nothing because it was comic book related. It's because of it was after the elections, and I'm pretty sure the momentum that his channel and channels like him got was mostly because of this the friction, of this
politics.
Yes, this liberal the assumption that the liberals obviously are in the majority of entertainment positions. And then obviously the answer back from obviously with
Isn't it sad the way the word liberal has been devalued and completely subverted? I mean, liberal should be a good thing to be. It's, how it's become a synonym for far left extreme activist
it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But
Anyway.
his videos, I think they attract a lot of people which might not been at first place comic book fans. They might just be someone that are unhappy with the establishment. Have voted Republican this last time around, and I think a lot of those have gravitated to a lot of
But
video
it's a very secondary effect, though, isn't it? Because he never talks about politics. I mean, I'm not even 100% sure that he voted for Trump. He may have done. I know he's quite pleased with the way the economy's gone since, but I don't think he's ever come out and said, "This is who I voted for."
I'm pretty sure he has not. But if you go on his Twitter, his followers, most of them are established Republicans. You can easily see that, and there's few. Let's say 50% of them will say they're comic book fans. The other 50 don't mention that at all.
No, some of them. I mean, some of them clearly are Republicans, but I think a lot of them are just people who don't like the way the left has gone to the extreme.
Yes.
There was a quick straw poll that I think it was Edwin Boyette did on his Twitter, and he said, "Look, if you're reading this, if you are Comicsgate, I'd like to know how you identify politically." And he had like 4 categories. And from memory, these won't be exact numbers, but from memory, it was something like 40% identified as Republican or conservative, I think was the word he used. Yep. But the majority fell into either apolitical or centrist.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the point. It's not that this is a huge right-wing movement. It's not that there's this political right that's flocking around these people. It's that the center ground is flocking around these people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those numbers could translate that, but I'm thinking more at on the dollar. I'm thinking more about the rough amount of sales these guys have done. That has helped a lot. It has helped a lot.
There's been a knock-on effect, definitely.
The way he criticizes the people that work in establishment, and obviously seen as liberal / people that probably voted Hillary / left wingers, and then obviously anyone looking at that from that prism, they're thinking, okay, well, in that case, what's the alternative? Well, there you go. This is a man that has been in the armed forces. He's pro guns, and obviously he's pro First Amendment, and I'm sure he's most likely a Republican. And there you go, 40% there. That's already quite a lot, Although obviously it's not the majority, but and from the point of view I'm interested, is sales, and in terms of sales, those 40%, even if only half of those 40% actually, in the end of the day, purchase his book, that's quite a lot. And obviously his numbers are are telling that story, you know, because they're big numbers, you know. So I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have sold this much. That's all I'm thinking. If obviously, if this was just a comic book, this is not just a comic book movement. There's never been just a comic book movement. This is more than that. This is a cultural movement, and that is the important thing, you know. And everybody jumping on the bandwagon, I think, is supporting that concept. Is supporting the idea that, well, this is not about how are you going to arrange page three. Do you think these panels are looking great? I'm pretty sure that like 80% of the audience is not thinking about that. It's not thinking about if these colorists as the right warm tones, or where's the light source coming from. You know, oh, it's so great. You know, no, they're thinking about, let me just purchase this because this is to help what we believe could shift the culture, the establishment culture. And yeah, if that's a good enough reason, that is a good enough reason. You know, it's good because obviously I haven't been buying the books of the so-called establishment, the Marvels and the DCs. There you go. I'm an example, and I always say that, you know, for anyone with doubts and everyone thinking, you know, well, are they still worth buying? Well, take me as an example. I used to buy them all religiously, almost, you know, from the late '70s to
No,
since I
they were
started
better
buying
way
comics.
back then. When I grew up, Marvel was, I mean, I'm in the 80s, late 80s. I loved them. I felt like they would do a run that would go on and on and on. It wasn't this 4-issue miniseries, you know, stuff they're doing now that's just washed up stories on agendas and whatnot. But they were done the way they should have been done, I feel. And growing up, I felt a disconnect afterwards. And then when I got, you know, back into comics, I'm like, what is, you know, like I was more supporting more the indie books like Dark Horse and Image, but like religiously, like you say, early on for me when I was, you know, 80s or whatnot. But then after that, I just felt a major disconnect with how they're running their, you know, their books.
It's the same experience I had. Actually, you know,
I don't want to support that.
Marvel particularly, you know, they start off very strong back in the '60s, and then they had their up and downs. I mean, at the end of the '60s, they were printing reruns of their books that had just published 5, 6 years earlier. So even earlier fans might have been disappointed and dropped Marvel straight after the first 10 years. You know, then the '70s came. You know, there were up and downs as well there, but in the '70s there was a lot of fresh blood getting in there. You know, it was Bronze Age. It was stuff done there that they had never done before and never again got done. And then come the '80s again, and then it started being called the House of Ideas. Again, we're just centering on Marvel here, and it was true. They did the Epic Illustrator. They there was a fork on the road, and they took both exits. You know, and again, I'm that guy that had started buying them in the late '70s, early '80s. Those are my favorite books, right? And then I bought them just because I think I should continue buying them anyway because I was a fan, you know. And that is my collection, you know. I got shelves and shelves of those things, and all the way to the mid '90s. And then why did I stop? I stopped for two reasons. First, because the other guys start coming up. So, like you mentioned, the Images and the Dark Horses. So my interest in terms of American comics again became a little bit more diluted. I started going here and there, but also because it's 95, 96, and I'm opening Incredible Hulk. I'm going, what the hell is this? What is this story? This is crap. And I'm literally throwing the book across. It was full of, I could already feel it, you know. She-Hulk was a feminist, was a proto-feminist, you know, too much in your face. The Hulk was a sissy. He was no longer the Hulk. He was a man with issues, you know.
Well, my first experience with modern Marvel, I suppose, for want of a better word, was about let's go back, not that far, possibly 5 years ago, something like that, maybe slightly less. Although I wasn't buying much in the way of mainstream comics, I was going monthly to a graphic novel book club. And it, just like any other book club, you get a book every month and read it and then all get together and discuss it, except that it was purely for graphic novels. And 9 times out of 10, the books we would discuss would be indie books, as you say, sometimes Image, sometimes even more obscure. But occasionally we would do a mainstream book. And one guy in that group, this wasn't the book we were discussing, but one guy in the group recommended to me Matt Fraction's Iron Fist, The Immortal Iron Fist. And I loved that, and I told him I loved it, and he said, "Oh, in that case, you should dig out the new Hawkeye by Matt Fraction." And I got this book, and I was disappointed in the first place because it didn't. I hate it when there are like two stories in one trade. I feel like, because I want to pretend it's a graphic novel, even though I know it's not. But there were a couple of different stories in there, so that annoyed me to start with. But the main thing was you had the Kate Bishop Hawkeye in it, as well as what I would call the real Hawkeye, the Clint Barton Hawkeye. And I'm reading the book and I'm thinking, why is everyone calling this girl Hawkeye when he's standing there right next to her? And how can there be two at once? And it's all that kind of nonsense just wasn't explained at all. And it was just a sign of, it needed somebody to come in. It needed Stan Lee to come in and say his sort of famous, every issue is somebody's first, because it just did not make sense as it was, at all. And it wasn't particularly well written anyway, but that kind of that I thought, if I'd been buying this on a monthly basis instead of in a trade, I would have bought the first one and then dropped it there and then.
Yeah. No, I felt it much earlier than that. Like I was saying, it was the end of the '90s, and I was already feeling these the themes that were creeping into the stories. They felt like almost like something you find in the pamphlets at the library on about sexual education or something like that. It's just, it felt odd. It felt off. After I started feeling, well, why is the whole issue being devoted to AIDS? I mean, it's okay, it's a worthy cause, but why am I being fed that here? That is my question. I mean, it's like, let's say you watch Dallas, right? The famous TV series, yeah? And then suddenly halfway through a season, they break to make an episode about dog shelters. It's like, why is this here? No, where's Poppy? Where's JR? Why is Victoria, Pamela doing this show about dogs in this episode? It's like,
well, the best example of how they could have handled that. Have you read Alan Moore's Top 10?
Actually called Top 10? No, I have not read that.
It's called Top 10. It's I think there's only 2 books, and then there are some spin-offs, but there are 2 main books, and it's great. Essentially, it starts off with this, or the premise is that you have a part of presumably New York City, but a part of the city which has been built purely to house all the superheroes, because there are so many superheroes now. You have this city where only superheroes live. So everybody in that city, or that part of the city, has a superpower of some kind. So your
Like
taxi driver and your local cook, or your police department. And Top 10 is the name of the precinct. It's precinct 10 of this particular part of the city. But they have, it's not even a major plot. It's within the major plot, whereas just as it hardly qualifies as a side plot or a subplot. There's this little thing that goes on where you learn that there's a disease going through this city called storms rather than AIDS. And it's one of these diseases which you can pick up if you have sex with a superhero, or if a superhero has sex, and it's like, if you're going to address AIDS, dress it up as something else, do it in a way that's going to be entertaining. And it's such a funny book. I mean, I recommend it to you. I mean, Alan Moore can be, I love him. He's definitely my favorite writer, but at the same time, there are books of his I hate. I have to admit.
You can't get them all with any good writer. You're not going to hit home runs all the way. You're always going to have some that fall through.
But Top 10 and League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, I recommend them to anybody. Top 10 is hugely underrated. It's funny, it's clever, it's witty. It's one of the books he did when he went off and did, was it called America's Best Comics or something, ABC?
Oh, right.
And he was obviously on a roll. He was like, he'd be given the freedom to do what he wanted, and he was going to have fun with it, and you can feel it. The books are, they're decent stories, but they look at superhero tropes. They look at police procedurals. They look at it's just so much in there. Every page is bristling with something new, and it's clever and it's witty and it makes you laugh out loud. And as I say, this whole thing about the storms, this I've forgotten what it stands for now. But again, as you can imagine, just as AIDS did, every letter stands for something, so that it fits in with that kind of analogy. And it's barely even features. There's like 2-3 panels or on in about 4 or 5 different places. So it becomes this running theme underneath the surface of everything else that's happening. And the guy who actually contracts it at the end, and the sort of the moral of the story, he's got this terrible disease and has to tell his wife, is clearly meant to be like this middle-aged version of Bouncing Boy, you know, from the Legion of Superheroes, if you can remember that far back. It was like this big ball-shaped inflatable thing. Oh, and when he finds out he's got the disease, he has a panic attack, which makes him inflate against his will. It is top 10.
Check that out.
There's 2 volumes. The first one I would say is a must read. The second one is almost as good, and it does actually, although the first volume comes to a kind of end, the second volume does continue the story as well. So it's worth getting both.
Yeah, he always had a bit of a problem with his follow-ups, isn't it? Because the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is first series is very good. The second one looks like it's someone else trying to copy him, but it's actually him. So
the second one, it's funny. I lent the first one to a woman I used to work with, and she loved it, and which surprised me in the first place. So I lent her the second, and then she had a nervous breakdown and never came back, and I never got my second book back. But at the same time, as you say, it wasn't as good as the first, and I haven't been able to persuade myself to go and buy another copy of it.
Yeah, no, it's not worth it. I gotta say, you leave it at the first. You knocked it out of the park. That's it. I thought I had all of them, but no, I actually never heard about top 10.
I recommend it. Unreservedly, I recommend top 10.
Next week, I'm planning on doing a Halloween special on Saturday. We can all go and visit Alan Moore at his house.
That'd be nice.
Which is, you will have to come here, Gilbert. You'll have to get an airplane ticket. Closer, because he's somewhere around here in the woods.
Oh man, in the woods! Oh my gosh!
Well, we're back on comics. Can I plug another Indiegogo?
Yes, I'm about to round it up. I'm pretty sure you gentlemen is getting late for David. I mean, I'll be very happy to continue, but Gilbert as well. I'm sure he's got other affairs to get on to.
The baby, yeah.
So I was thinking, start to round this up, unless you guys really wanted to discuss something else. But in the meanwhile, yes, go ahead, David. You have your current Indiegogo, is that right?
Yeah, it's not actually my project. It's a project by a guy called Doug Garrett, called Lone Wolf.
Yeah, I backed that one. That one looked cool.
You backed that, good.
Yeah.
Because the reason I'm involved at all is he put a note up on Facebook when he was starting out and said he'd got his artist. The artwork was continuing. He had several pages already done. He was looking for a colorist and a letterer. And I said to him, look, if you get somebody who really knows what they're doing, then by all means grab them. Don't rely on me. But if you want me to help, I have had some experience lettering my own graphic novel, the second volume of my own graphic novel. So I'll happily step in and help you get this finished. And he said, yeah. He came back and said, no, actually, I'd like you to. And I sent him a couple of samples, and we got together on it. So I'm the letterer on this. I say I'm not one of the big two. I'm not the artist or the writer, but it's an intriguing story. He's got some Cherokee blood in him somewhere, so says Doug. But I mean, that could be an Elizabeth Warren type claim, I guess. But he says he's got some Cherokee blood in him, and this is a story about a 200-year-old Cherokee warrior who is charged with fighting supernatural threats, including ghouls. And I know it includes ghouls because I've lettered pages with ghouls on them. The story goes further into his background, and I know that as much as I know so far is he was gifted with his powers and his responsibility to fight these supernatural threats by his grandfather. And as the story progresses, you will actually see some in flashbacks and things. You will see what happened to his grandfather and his grandmother in the past, and how he came to be heir to these powers. That's on Indiegogo now.
Yep.
The artist,
So,
the writer is Doug Garrett. The artist is Jeff Lasley. Sorry,
yeah.
you were going to ask?
Now you're doing the lettering for this one, right?
I'm doing the lettering for it. Yeah, that's all.
All right.
It's not my project in that sense. I'm just helping out.
Very good. So, though Garrett, I have spoken to him actually. Very very nice chap. He plays his ukulele.
He normally plays the banjo, but I think he's got a ukulele as well. Yes, but it's normally the banjo.
And he's a very nice chap. It seems like a nice project. David is doing the lettering on this one. I spoke to him once because I was actually suggesting it. You should leave it in black and white, man. It's fine.
It's funny. He has got somebody who has agreed to color it. It's a 3,000 target. If we get to 4,000, it's going to be colored. But I agree. The black and white art is lovely, and
Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. Simply because I saw the color flats, what I presume were the complete work, but they look like flats, and I'm thinking, man, listen, if you're gonna go with this, you better leave it as it is because he's grayscale. He's fine as it is.
I do like there's something atmospheric about the black and white. But I know he's just introduced a new tier, taking his cue from Alterna and their newsprint comics. He's going to do a black and white newsprint edition as well, and I think that tier, I think you get that for just $3.
Yeah. Well, here's a bit of the colors. Here we go. This is what I was mentioning. Maybe again, I don't know if this is the actual complete page. Maybe there's still some layers to go over this, but as far as I'm concerned, I would happily exchange this for this here. I prefer this much more. I mean, it's got that Night of the Living Dead kind of feel, which if it is a horror kind of a zombie story, I think is perfect for. I would definitely leave it black and white, or again offer two options. That's beautiful. I was offering two options as well in my recent campaign, though, a black and white and the color. And I gotta say, no one touched the black and white. They all went for the color one. But then again, I had damn expensive colors. So.
Yeah.
So this is yours, and once again, how to get your Shades graphic novel. So we can go to Indie Planet for US customers, and that's easy to find. And for anyone else, what is the site again?
Well, I mean, anyone else can go to Indie Planet as well if they like. But as I say, if you're in Europe, because it will come out from me eventually, you get it quicker, I'm sure. If you go to Comicsy, COMICSY.co.uk.
Okay, very good. And then back on there, just one more time. So again, this has been released before. Now Gilbert is doing a Indiegogo, so you can have another print run. Very easy target. So this is in the bag already, and it's just to get you guys access to this wonderful book with great art. And there's in here once again.
Every time you show me that cover for Lair, I keep wanting to order another copy. Stop.
Yeah, pretty good. And I was asking Gilbert
because good, man. I was lucky with that.
This here looks obviously like American Foreman in here as well, but I looked at this here. Well, you guys will be looking at it on your right side of the screen. The photo here on this tier, just the basic tier, the graphic novel. When I saw this, it looked to me like a disco, an LP, an album.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, this is great because I rarely see a book in this shape, and I love a coffee table size book. I love me a nice hardback coffee table book. And with the
might be an idea for the second one. You're giving me an idea for the second one if there's a demand.
I like to do that one for my own books, but it's damn expensive,
It is.
But it's beautiful. If you
But
can
it's
make a
beautiful
nice hardcover, a big, well, that would have the art would have to fit this. You see, it would have to be formatted in a different way.
Yeah.
It can be done sometimes with the pages you have, but the artist would have to construct them a little bit and push some panels to the next page. So that's a bit of work to be done.
Oh yeah.
But there you go. That's an idea for anyone actually starting from scratch. If they do a book like this, I'll buy it. It's a nice coffee table style size, So there you go. Those are the two projects. I think everybody already got them. And anything else you guys want to add?
Hey, just thank you so much for extending the invitation. It was awesome. It was nice to get to know more about you, Luis, and David. It was a pleasure. Thank you for backing Lair. It was also nice to know that I'm backing your lettering work on Lone Wolf, and I look to be picking up a copy of Shades in the not too distant future. So just to talk comics with you guys it was great, man. Thank you for opening up.
Pleasure, man. It's great to have you.
Echo that completely. It was good to meet you, Gilbert, and Luis. Thank you very much for inviting us on.
Thank you. Maybe you guys can join me again at another time. Again, next week I'm doing a special on Saturday, although on Friday we should be having another letterer actually, but it's someone with a long career, and I've always wanted to have a guest focused only on lettering, because there's obviously a lot of challenges to that. I myself did a bit of lettering when I was very young with my father. We did a lot of the European books translated in a couple of different languages. So I've been there, and next Friday I should be announcing the guest very soon, as soon as it is confirmed.
Luis, sorry to interrupt, but because I've got a memory like a sieve, I will forget if I don't. This series you're running here, this is to sort of promote European members of Comic Skate or people.
Not everyone.
Yeah. But what I wanted to mention was there is the Needle Movers Society is an American website, but they do a stream on Fridays or Saturdays. They haven't decided that. I think they're going to move it. One week could be Friday, another week maybe a Saturday. But they do one at about 2:00 in the afternoon their time, which is about sort of 8:00 European time. So that might be convenient for any European guys who find a lot of US broadcasts too late. Just a quick mention. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah, it's the Needle Movers Society.
Yeah, that's we are already keeping a tab on that one. But next Saturday I will be holding a special Halloween show where we're gonna speak about the basis of horror, and I wanted to get a bit metaphysical about it. So I don't know if any of you two want to participate. If you want, it's an open channel. David, I'm sure you probably have probably there's something there you want to talk about, and Gilbert, you have Lair touches a little bit on that. So you're both quite welcome to join. I want to have a larger panel on that particular night, so a few more guests in. I have a couple of them already lined up. So if you guys have time, next Saturday. So for you, David, will be probably roughly the same time as today.
What dates is it?
Well, next Saturday. So looking at my calendar here, we'll be talking about the 27th. So.
Put me down as a probably. I'm heading off to Australia on the 1st, so assuming I got everything packed and I'm ready, then yes, I will.
Well, the 1st is Thursday, so I know you have 6 suitcases, but come on, man. On Saturday.
I am going for a whole month, so yeah.
That's the way to go.
That's the way to go. That's the way to go. But I do have, now you mention it, I do have 2. I've contributed to 2 anthologies, horror themed anthologies, which I won't mention now because I've taken up enough of your time. But they will be perfect to mention maybe for a Halloween special.
Awesome. Yeah, please do suggest books. We can speak Poe. We can speak Borrow. There's many there to speak. We want to get to the nitty-gritty of horror or horror literature, and the way it translates into movies and comics as well. I think it's a genre that's actually sometimes underexploited in comics. But it will be a longer stream, so 3 hours most likely. We're gonna have more guests. We're probably even gonna have a soundtrack. Some music.
All right. Just make sure the system doesn't crash. So
yes, we're gonna have the steering down. And we're gonna probably have some beers as well. So And David can bring this lovely lady that is part of his avatar. I don't know who she is, but she's a lovely brunette. So
she is she was painted by the artist on the second part of Shades, and it's because again, I won't go into long details about this, but I mentioned I was writing a novel, and it's a fantasy novel, and she's one of the characters in it, and this guy has kindly done a few illustrations for me, so that's where she's from.
Yeah, see, Gilbert, this looks like a proper Greek woman when you go there on all. This is what is called a fresco, yeah? Proper fresco. It's a fresco girl. All right, guys. So thank you very much. We're gonna
thank you, sir.
You're welcome to stay for the after party, but
guys, it's been a blast. Till next time.
Thank you so
much. Thanks, Gilbert. Great to see you.
Likewise. Take care, guys.
Bye-bye to everyone. Bye.
All right.